All righty, it's 8:30. Happy post-Thanksgiving. Beginning to the holiday season. Do we have any public comments?
Oh, humbug. No.
Any public comments?
We need a trap door.
Any public comments?
No, down.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we have minutes from November 18th and 27th. Let's do them separately. November 18th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Wait,
What?
we do them all.
I just
I
did
thought
the
She had said
18th,
we were doing them
27.
separately.
Okay,
You have a motion for the 20.
yeah.
Do we have a second?
So moved.
All right, I will go ahead and all in favor.
All right.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Meet with best move to discuss and consider invoice. Are we doing that?
What are we discussing?
Is the best move? Are they coming?
I told Susie that he called, said he's running about 5 or 10 minutes late, so we should.
So we'll come back to that.
want
Yeah,
to circle
we
back to it.
skipped the meet with the county engineer.
We'll do that now.
Well, it was number 2.
Huh?
That was number 2 on the list.
He was after best move. So we'll go to county
All
engineer.
right,
Good morning.
we have snow.
I'm gonna go out and keep an eye out for him.
So
Thank you, Dave.
on my way down, I noticed awful slippery about Brighton, and so I sent Jess up here text so we could get out and get ahead of it. So they're out spreading salt and sand to try and make the roads a little
Yep.
less dicey than what they are.
I saw him an hour and a half ago in Glasgow.
Yeah.
They're pretty much gonna hit, standard snow and ice procedure, all the pavements and bridge decks. Then some of the stops on hills on the gravels. Probably do some plowing and welcome to winter. It's December.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for it. We may be done patching. We'll see if this melts off. It's kind of address it as Mother Nature allows. Let's see, what else have I got? I've got a couple items here later.
Yeah,
on
you've got a
for you.
whole list of things. Do you want to go on to those?
Sure, and then let's see, what's
All
first
right.
up?
We have number 2 on our agenda, review and consider safe streets for all pledge.
That should be in your packet. That is part of a safety grant that I think 90 of the 99 counties are signed on for. As part of this, we have to pledge, we are asked to pledge to implement the findings of this safety study as our budget allows. The key point on this safety study is it is kind of the baseline going forward for receiving additional federal grants.
Mm.
If this safety plan, excuse me, this safety plan is not in place, then we're pretty well eliminated from the chance of future grants.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
do we have a second?
Second,
Do we have any discussion?
I went back to something you said just a second ago. As budgets allow and given the way things have been going, is this just more,
Feel good?
yeah,
Yes and no.
okay,
This, because we'll have this safety study as backup. This will provide reference data for any future TSIP grants. So my anticipation is that on farm to market projects, much like we're doing on Libertyville Road and 110, we will apply for state safety grant money to take care of the items that this study points out.
Yeah.
So
Is there a match to those grants?
the T-SIP, no.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, if you're doing safety measures, if the state, if the T-SIP fund is a certain percentage of the money that the state gets in the road use tax. I don't know if it's 0.5% or 5%, whatever it is. But whatever that pot of money is, then the board evaluates all of the grant applications for that year and
Okay,
chooses them, and then it is no match money, but it's capped at 500,000. So if you've got $1 million worth of safety activities, you're only gonna get 500,000 tops, but if you have $200,000 worth of safety activities like we do up on 110, that's eligible for all of it.
okay.
So there's no match.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 3, discuss and consider authorizing chair to sign certificate of completion and final acceptance of agreement work for purchase of mobile traffic signs through T-SIP grant. And that is this Iowa DOT.
Yes. Yeah, that's.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
You need more than one.
No, just one little scanner, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, number,
The crew really likes those portable traffic stations, so
well, it's a good safety addition.
it is, it makes the setups. It gets people's attention, you know.
All right, number 4, discuss and consider Jefferson County Secondary Road Employee Classification and wage rate change. Excuse me, this is, why don't you tell us about this? This one is for Josh
This is
Roser.
for Jess Rauscher. We had 6 applicants for the road superintendent position. One of them backed out, so we had 5 interviews last week, and Jess Rauscher's been an employee at the secondary roads department for, I want to say, 24 years. And in conjunction, also during much of that time, he was in the National Guard. Was called in for active duty, I want to say 2004 to 2006, at which time he took a leave of absence from the road department. But basically, since 2000, he's been operating equipment, driving truck, and being a good employee at the county. He was a non-commissioned officer in the reserve, so he's managed people in life and death situations. And he has a good feel and a good baseline for managing people with positive reinforcement. And I think he's going to work out very well.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Any discussion?
I'm curious, your thought process. And this would apply to anybody as far as that department goes. I wonder about. Obviously, there are some advantages, but I wonder about the disadvantages that we've experienced in the past from promoting from within. As far as employees. Well, Josh, you were just a maintainer operator. Now you're gonna come along and tell me how to do it. And I wonder if there isn't, if part of the issue that we've had in the past is our supervisors experiencing those kind of pushbacks and how we handle that. You know, just whether or not bringing somebody in from the outside would, people would be better served. I don't know.
I struggled with that. And I think my feeling is that just because of the time lag it took me to get comfortable and feel somewhat knowledgeable about the roads in the county, that having somebody with experience in the county is a benefit. And then also, I think with Jess's personality and the respect the rest of the crew members have for him and his longevity in the department, I don't think that will be an issue with them feeling that he doesn't have the background to tell them how to do their job. And I think a lot of it is the fact that he won't be telling them how to do their job. He'll be telling them what needs to be done. And I think we'll have a lot more collaborative process on means and methods of getting the job done. I think, actually, we spoke about being more open to feedback and input from the crews, which was lacking previously.
And the other thing is, and I'm sure you've probably spoken to him about it, but to make sure that he or you or Thomas or somebody is available. We need a truck out there, Blair Road to get an ambulance down the road, or law enforcement or whatever that.
Or a fire truck or anything, any
Right.
emergency.
Yeah,
vehicle.
We've discussed, having one person on call 24/7, 365 is really not a sustainable method. What we've discussed doing and what we're going to do is we are going to get a on-call phone so that emergency service has one phone number to contact Jefferson County secondary roads if they need emergency assistance. And between Jess and Bob and a couple other the employees that have expressed interest in doing that, we will have somebody at that number 24/7, no matter who's where, and that way, a person can have somewhat of a personal life without being completely tied to work.
Excuse me.
Certainly.
Can I say something too on the promotion? And I don't know this guy, but if he was in the military for however long, and he was an NCO, he's been through that before, being promoted within or above your peers and being able to manage those things effectively. I went through that multiple times, and most of the people, if you're good at what you do, they'll respect that and they'll listen to you. And I mean, from his praise of the guy, I think that's a good choice. So I don't think it's gonna be much of an issue.
Call the question.
Any more? Okay, we have a question. Okay,
Go ahead, I'm just.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do we have any opposed? Okay, do we need to? Some of them.
Yeah, I'm in the meeting. Okay, I'll call that.
Number 5, discuss and consider hiring 2 new employees for Jefferson County roads. And they are here, Brian Stever and Gary Stacy.
Gary.
Brian. Oh, yeah. All right, what can you tell us?
We are observing the time-honored tradition of stealing good employees from other departments. Garen is currently working for Washington County as a blade operator, but he lives in Fairfield and would like to be closer to home.
Well,
So
we had that happen to us.
we are going to
And
oblige him.
others.
And he has 15 years experience at Sinclair, repairing tractors and skid loaders, so from that standpoint, he will be a great benefit. Brian, our mechanic, will have use for him outside of his equipment operator experiences as well. And he left Sinclair for basically for advancement. He was at the top of where he could go there, and he was looking for someplace where he could better himself. And we're looking forward to helping him with that. And then Brian has been at the city of Fairfield, I want to say for 20 years. He applied the last time we were looking to hire, and at that time we had made other choices, basically not anything against Brian, and he applied again, and you know, honestly, he's got great credentials, great experience. Look forward to having him on the team.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Do we have discussion?
yeah, I'm curious, is there a possibility that do we need to fill both slots?
Yes. We let him, we had an employee leave 2 years ago and did replace him.
Okay.
So we're pretty much bare minimum.
Right. All in favor? Aye. All righty. Let's do this. Excellent. Meet with ambulance director. Good morning.
Good morning. I didn't prepare my normal statistics that I normally have here. So things are, it's kind of a, I guess, busy weekend. I came in yesterday for cover transfer, and I think we had probably 10 calls over the weekend, so it was relatively busy. Other than that, things are going along. We did miss the deadline for the GEMT grant. The deadline for that was November 30th. I pushed out, or I think I sent it over to Darcy to get some information on that I didn't have that we needed for that grant. So missed the mark on that, but
Is there any way you can call them?
I'll ask and see, but I know
It's
she,
like, great, if you could get that in today or tomorrow.
yeah, I don't know if she has that information
Because
here
we
or
really
not.
gotta work on revenue.
I agree. But it was, I don't even remember what it was now. It was a bunch of information, like just specific stuff that they needed for the grant that I didn't have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll ask and see if we can get that pushed in a little late. Other than that, still working on staffing. We have our master schedule put into place now, which I think is gonna help staffing tremendously. However, we have one person out for an extended period of time because of some medical issues or some trauma. And then one that's still out for a couple more weeks on maternity leave. But once we get her back, then filling the remaining holes will be relatively easy to do.
Okay.
So.
Good.
On that, there are 2 applicants, and those are the next 2 things. The first one, Alexis Raymond, she put in her application and then messaged me over the weekend. She's wanting to kind of put that on hold for now. And I guess, I mean, we can still vote to approve her, but she won't start for probably another month now or so.
She's a PRN. anyway.
Yeah. She's getting married, and I think like the week of Christmas or something like that. So she's got a lot of other things going on. But yeah, she's been an EMT in Ottumwa for a little while, and I think she currently runs the beach in Ottumwa administratively. So, and then the other is Cheyenne Troutman. She's an EMT and I believe a CNA in Van Buren County. Currently kind of doing dual roles down there. She wants to come up here. Both of them want full-time eventually, if that's an option, but they're both fully informed right now that that may not be possible yet, so.
Then make a motion to approve. You want to move forward with Alexis?
We can, I mean, that's up to you guys. Like I said, she won't start for a little while anyway, but nothing's gonna change as far as her pay and everything else, so.
Right.
Well, it's just PRN, so there's no benefits or anything.
Right.
So I would make a motion to approve the hiring of Alexis
Raymond,
Raymond.
Yep.
At $18 per hour.
I'll second, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one. Do we have a motion for Shannon Troutman?
Good move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
she's actually getting her physical and stuff done today, so. Yeah, that should be a pretty quick turnaround for that.
So what's the plan on meeting with the hospital to work on transfers? So we can actually get some money, because we should be getting some.
I agree. So with staffing as it is right now, it's still kind of hit and miss. Again, with the master schedule in place, there are significantly less holes and less inconsistency there. I will come in as needed to cover transfers and things like that on those days where we're not fully staffed. So, I mean, as far as that goes, it'll be a lot more, like I said, just consistent in our ability to do that. So we'll definitely see an uptick in those.
But I think,
And until we're
why
like,
didn't you go ahead and contact hospital and get something on the books for it's December, first part of January, and start meeting with them? Are you gonna do that, Lee? Meet with the hospital for the transfer agreement so we can start getting some reimbursement?
Well, I'd be willing to, but it'd be up to the board to make that decision as to who they want.
Somebody.
are you talking about the reimbursement from the hospital? Oh, okay. So our,
Contract, and I think Chauncey and Elizabeth, you've got that,
yeah,
but we haven't got, I mean, we need some revenue from all these transfers, so needs to go up high on the list,
I agree.
whether it happens now or after January.
My intent has been to wait until a little bit closer to when that tax levy is done with them, which I believe is July.
That's not gonna make any difference.
You don't
They've
think so?
already budgeted that. No,
Okay,
we need the revenue.
I agree.
That needs to be the focus of this board going forward. We talk about it and
Now, we probably, now that you mentioned that, and I'm sitting here thinking about it, they have the same more or less budget timetable that we do.
it's already been approved. It's in their plan.
Right, and so we have to get it into, if we're gonna go, we're gonna start, how to say this, so we end the levy on June 30th.
Mhm.
So going into fiscal 25, they need to have it in their budget. So if we don't have some type of formal agreement, then they can just look at, well, we didn't have it in our budget.
Well, and I
Yeah,
remember
okay.
last
Yeah, that
year,
makes
they
sense.
wanted it done by mid-January because their budget, they start early.
Right.
Okay,
So it needs to be done.
Yeah, I think the sooner the better.
And I don't care. One of you needs to work on that.
I'll be happy to do it, but again, it's a board decision. I mean, as far as who goes.
It just
I
needs.
agree with Dee. I think you should do it.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
And, yeah, and bring the attorneys into it, but basically, we're missing out on money.
I wholeheartedly agree, and
And I
I will.
can tell you,
I'll be happy
taxpayers
to have that
would
conversation.
be well served to get some revenue going and not just rely on the levy, because that levy doesn't have to be maxed out every
Right.
year.
Yeah, I also, on that note, I want to go around and talk to the nursing homes as well, because there was an issue over the weekend where a resident needed to be transported to the hospital for a chest X-ray at 1 o'clock in the morning. And to justify the ambulance transfer, they put her on 1 liter of oxygen. Yeah. So those conversations need to happen as well, and I'm more than happy to hurt some feelings, I don't care, but that's not appropriate. That's not appropriate use of resources.
Have you
So-
met with the hospital lately too to talk about the transfers and the timing of them? That might be something, I'm guessing that will also come up in this transfer discussion, because
Oh, I'm sure it will.
I've heard a little bit of,
And on that same patient, I believe the transfer back to the nursing home. The nursing home had sent a transport van.
Mhm.
But the ER staff didn't want to wait for that. And so they called an ambulance at like 6:30 in the morning to take that patient back to the nursing home. So again, it's inappropriate use of resources and they do it all the time. So
why do they pick the middle of the night?
just convenience, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Cause I don't know. There's a lot of things that need to be addressed, so.
Okay, so just make sure we're on the same page. It'd be really good to get this, at least a meeting set before Christmas for the hospital and the transfers. Because I can tell you, based on last year having similar discussions, their budget process is ahead of ours, and if you don't hit that and get in with their goals, it's not gonna happen.
Okay.
And then the other thing is the GEMT.
Mhm.
The other thing you may want to consider going forward is when you send those emails, always copy the auditor to make sure somebody in there, if that person's off, somebody will step in and hopefully follow up.
Okay.
All right,
I also think moving forward, the board, so sitting down with Josh, we need to, our billing agreement comes due. I don't know, due is the right word, but renewal, whatever is in June. And so we need to look at whether or not we're getting the best bang for our buck at this point.
and based on, I've talked to Lee County, I've talked to Washington County, again, they're like 3 to 5 years ahead of us in the ambulance, county ambulance. They all changed billing companies after a year or two. I don't know their reasons at this time, it's been
Well, I
conversations.
think Washington went internal, didn't they?
Yeah, Washington's doing all their billing internally, and I talked to, the director up there was one of my former students, so we get along pretty well. But he said that they're collecting, I think 60% of what they bill out, and we're at like 20,
I know.
25%.
We're not collecting what we should be.
Right,
That I know.
right. And reading through the contract with the EMS billing, they don't actively pursue collection. They'll send out the bills and that's the end of it.
Right, and they should,
Yep.
because again, when I did this research, when the original care contract was breached, that was one thing I learned visiting a neighboring county, is you gotta go after collections, or you're never gonna make it.
Yep.
So again, we've got counties in our area we can learn from.
Right, absolutely.
Cedar's another one that started ambulance recently. They reach out to them, see what their experience is. But that'd be a good goal to get 60% of
Oh, yeah,
reimbursement.
absolutely.
And I don't think it would take a full-time person. I don't know that. I know some of the other counties were like, maybe ask your Washington County. Of course, their volume's a lot higher than ours.
Yeah, I think so. Well, not, I wouldn't say a lot higher, but
Well, they have 3 different places they have to staff though, I believe, don't they?
two,
are they
I
two?
think. Yeah, they're doing
Okay.
Washington and then they have a rig in Kelowna, like part-time.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jared?
Uniforms?
All right, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no. It's 8:59. Are we gonna have a public hearing? Does anybody have anything on that?
Well, no, there's some things that we need to discuss.
That's what I
about that.
thought.
We'll have
So
to
just-
set it.
So everybody's clear, we are not having a public hearing at 9 AM
Correct.
because the paperwork's not ready.
Well,
Or
there's some, yeah, there are some other.
there's some
nuances.
details that need to be clarified.
Correct.
All right. Continues.
Okay. So uniforms, I think I sent out,
Yep.
to the board, the request for uniforms. Top Dog is able to do the uniforms, for, I think all the full-time staff will get 2 shirts and then part-time staff, I think will get 1. And then there was also a request in there for jackets, which today's a good example of why we need them and for them to be uniform. Some of the staff that transferred out from care still have theirs, but with all the changes and things like that, there's just no uniformity in winter wear either. So my hope is that we can get those approved and get those ordered. The jackets will come from Amazon. They have as many as we need and the different sizes and things like that. So with that, I do have an Amazon account, a business account through Jefferson County, but I don't have I think I'll need to maybe make an adjustment or ask for an increase in the credit card limit to be able to make that purchase. Because they don't do like POs or invoices. I'm not sure exactly how we need to go about that, but
How's your budget looking? Is there money in it for this?
so we're gonna go over, so there's like a $700 budget line item
And
for
this was like
uniforms.
1,000 or something,
Yeah,
right?
the uniforms, I think the shirts were 1,400. And then the jackets, I think were like 2 something. I don't remember exactly off the top of my
Okay.
head. I have it in email,
But
but
in your overall budget, it should be okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just have to move some things around.
So on your Amazon account, it might sound kind of petty, but we get tax exemption on that?
Yes, I
Okay.
did put it in for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Any thoughts from the board?
How much do you think this is gonna cost altogether?
I mean, I can tell you. Sorry, I'm not as prepared as I should be. So the Top Dog for the shirts from Top Dog, it's $12.75. And then the jackets for everyone will be $23.18 and 29 cents.
And what?
29 cents. 23.18, 29.
It's quite a bit over.
Hmm.
It's quite a bit over.
Yeah, that is a lot over the uniform line item.
Thoughts?
So how many jackets are we talking about?
Uh, I think 18 or 20. So all the full timers are gonna get one. The people working full-time hours will all get their own, and then I was gonna purchase like one of each size as for like the PRN staff to share.
Okay.
So that I'm not gonna spend
Is there
an
any,
individual jacket for people who are here once a
Yeah.
3 months or whatever, so.
right? So is there any policy on, and maybe you don't have a lot of turnover in those full-time jobs, but if they work so long, does their uniform stay here or? Does it
I
go?
don't think we have a policy for that, but I mean, we can,
I don't think
certainly.
we've had a lot of full-time turnover.
no, I don't believe so.
In a recent, I mean, in a short time.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, we can certainly write that in where if you leave, then
I mean,
you
just,
either reimburse the uniforms if you want to keep them or they stay here.
what happens if we don't get these?
nothing. And people just wear whatever they got.
I feel better about spending money if we had some revenue.
I really agree.
Well,
We could postpone it too.
Yeah. Could just not act on it for now and wait and deal with it later. When we get some revenue. Do they all have reflective vests available?
There are reflective vests on the ambulances, yeah.
I mean, safety is the utmost thing.
Mhm.
And I know it's nice to have them all attired this similarly, but.
well, I think we can start anyway with, I don't know, let me ask you a question. Would you say 18 plus a couple of part-timers? So 20 at a $2,300. So a little less than $100 a piece. So my question would be whether or not, you know, by the same token, we Dwayne, what do we do on, do we have like a uniform, a safety allowance, boot allowance or something?
Isn't it like $200 a year?
We've pretty much gone to just replacing their boots when they need replaced. We really haven't put a cap on it because it used to be like $125 a year, and you know, a good pair of boots costs $250. If they're safety toe, but then they also should last 30 years. Okay, so they have to show me their boots and
I just want a pair.
and then Melissa tracks on when they buy them. Because they're work boots, they're not, they're not something they're gonna wear out for dinner with the wife and take the family to church in. They're work boots.
Right. What do you do in your department?
We replace boots too and uniforms. So we don't have a per year limit or whatever. It's as they wear them out. The stuff doesn't wear out. So, but again, their boots last several years. So, and boots are expensive these days. So, and it's part of the uniform.
Whereas yours, the boots, we're not dealing with boots.
We don't do anything for uniforms other than shirts right now.
How warm are the jackets?
What's that?
How warm are the jackets?
How warm are they?
I mean,
I
are
mean,
they,
they're like, there's a fleece liner and then the outer coat, so,
so if they layer
think
under
they're-
it, they.
yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
And I mean, as far as the outerwear, I get it. I mean, that's a big price tag. At the very least, if we could split this up and do the shirts now and then the jackets later,
I'd feel better about that.
that's. Cause I think everybody's, and I don't wanna do anything based on people's excitement, however,
Right.
you know, morale is a big deal and, to get the black and orange shirts, that was,
Yeah.
people were really excited about those.
I know, they were.
They, yeah, like surprisingly, like
Okay, I'm
everybody,
gonna make a motion that we get the shirts.
At what price?
that was the 14.
Oh, that was
Or,
$12.75.
hold on, yeah, 12.75.
And
Nice.
a max of
I second
$12.75.
that motion.
All right. Any discussion?
What, you think the employees would be willing to share some more of the cost of those coats?
Potentially. I can push that out and ask,
I'm just curious,
yeah. Oh, that's,
even $25,
mhm,
$75 coat,
yeah.
just curious, anyway.
Okay, any more discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Discuss staffing a BLS ambulance.
Oh, that's good. Driving.
And then we will go to
Yep.
best move.
So with the BLS truck, again, as staffing continues to improve, it's not as much of an issue. My thought there was on days that we only have one paramedic and I'm unable to come in and do extra crew, if we could, as a last resort, run an ALS truck, because we'll always have a paramedic. And then a BLS crew if we need to as a backup. So that was my thought. But again, with staffing getting better, really our paramedic holes that we have in the master schedule are basically every other Friday. And then with the one medic being out, it's Sunday, Monday, every week.
This is just on as discussion, and I think discussion's good, just so we know what's going on, and I'd say you as the department head need to make those staffing decisions as you have, and I know you've done a great job recruiting people. And it sounds like most of the holes are filled, and we appreciate when you've had to work many weekends. We know that. And yesterday after a holiday weekend. So,
Part of it.
to me, that's up to your judgment. I don't know that it requires a vote. Just keep us informed, and maybe if you're gonna run just a BLS, email the board and let them know so they are enlightened and know.
So you have an estimate of how long, our medic may be out?
She said 10 to 12 weeks, and that was like last week.
So do we have any part-time, and whatever terminology you want to use, medics out there that may be interested in full-time?
I've asked and I've not got a lot of confirmation. I've pushed it out, and I will continue to do so, but those who are PRN or part-time here have obligations elsewhere, and so it's a little bit of a challenge for some of those.
Well, my concern is that, I mean, I hope we get our medic back, but I'm not gonna hold my breath either.
Yeah,
And we have to plan for,
right,
I mean, that's a hole we're gonna have to fill, and we need medics anyway.
right,
So,
right.
Josh, I think you're doing a good job of
Mhm.
taking care of this.
And I appreciate that, I really do, but I also recognize that there's more to be done, and
Sure.
it's a continuous effort, but
It's just something to work towards.
it is.
We appreciate
Absolutely, yeah.
everything you've done.
And I don't come by this lightly. I wholeheartedly believe that we should run 2 ALS trucks. I would prefer to have 2 medics on every truck if at all possible. But I know that's not feasible. And I can't just live at the station.
No, you can't. And again, I just think it's helpful if this board just has an email or something that says, hey, we're gonna run a BLS truck on whenever, because then we know what's going on.
Right. And the other part of that too is, we can triage calls and we can send a BLS truck first, and then if that medic needs to go. And a lot of places run a tier system like that where every response is basic until it's not, and then the medic can go and, or based on, if we think if it's an unresponsive person, then we obviously send the paramedic that's available. But if it's a help up, then we would send the basic crew and then the ALS truck if we need to. So it's not just like, on a whim, there's a process to it, so.
I would ask that we let all of us know what's going on.
Oh, okay, absolutely. I can do that.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
anything else for Josh? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate all your efforts.
More to be done.
Okay, we're gonna go to meet with Best Move to discuss, consider invoice. Dave, hi, welcome, come on up.
Apologize to everybody for being late. and missing
Oh,
the
that's
slot.
okay.
Weather was unexpected, at least for me anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I traveled 2 hours from where I was to be here, but again, I was unexpected. My name is Joe Sanchez. I'm the owner of Best Move. I started my company back in 97, had 13 years prior experience before I had. And, this was kind of, dropped in our lap, sort of suddenly. It all
Yeah.
happened real quickly. I mean, we run nonstop, it doesn't matter time of year, month of the year. The only thing that changes in our schedule is how far we can see out in our schedule. And typically it's, 8 months out of the year, we're 2 months booked out. And talking to Dave here, we had met and seen what all need to be done. And like I mentioned to Dave, it looks like it's plain and simple what we're seeing, but we never know what's gonna happen, what we're gonna run into. And so upon giving him the estimated cost possibly, and I mentioned to him that again, that it's kind of hard to foresee exactly what will unfold, during the dismantling and the resituating. And of course, I'm not sure, there's about 80 file cabinets. I know at about 75% for 350 pounds, and I anticipate they're gonna be heavy. We typically charge a heavy handling fee per item. And, every household has safes, ellipticals, jacuzzis, pool tables, pianos, baby grands, and so on. So, every professional company has a heavy handling lift. And I told him, I said, we're gonna, I talked to my men, we're gonna back away from that. We're gonna try to make this feasible as possible. And, try to make this, accomplish this for your county. And, with all that understood, my men understood that they were, expected to eat this, pretty much, each item, but, that, we'd work it out throughout the year, Christmas, bonus and that kind of thing. But, anyway, and we did, say there was no fee for boxes and there was no tape. But we have so many people that did go over my head, and that was billed.
Right.
So that what my wife has eliminated that with the new billing. But, when we had gotten together and looked at it, like I mentioned to Dave, I said, it's hard to tell what exactly we're gonna run into until we run into it. And when we had agreed that we would handle it, had the email sent, I had mentioned it was just a couple days after that, had another company situated the following week. And I mentioned to him that they were backing out of their slot because they're not ready. Would you like we could fill you in with this spot, or we could go forward with our schedule. We've always got people on the back burner, and Dave said, by all means, we'd like to take that. And so boom, it was, we're getting it on, and then got the email sent, that was already sent. And then I think it was that Friday, Dave called me up and goes, hey, we're on for next week, right? And I said, yeah, we're on. I just, haven't had a chance to give you the call back or whatever, but yes, no, we'll be there Tuesday. We had scheduled, we were already booked for Monday, and a small move on Tuesday that we had to meet commitments with. But then Tuesday afternoon, late morning, we would start the project, in which we had on that day. I know we're systematic. We have to be, what goes in our truck, how it comes out, how it's packed and labeled, things of that nature. We gotta typically, us men don't do the packing. My wife and the ladies do the packing, but I don't want my ladies hurt because of all the boxes and then the weight and them having to move it around. So us men typically would rather move a baby grand up 3 floors than pack a box. But my men agree that, hey, yeah, you're right, they can't do this. Explain to them what it was. So yeah, there was a lot,
So what are we looking at now without the boxes or?
It
We've got it
it's
there, don't you?
without the boxes come to 12,525. And but as we dug into it the second day, and Dave was here every day. You know, and the first day he was here, wanted to see how things were going, showed up 2 hours later, wanted to see how things were going, progress. And we had, on that day, we had packaged all the boxes and relocate them and got them situated over the new location for the most part out of our way. And then Tuesday we were, I think we had situated I think what we had done is got the boxes in the truck, I believe. And we may have brought 2 trucks on that day.
No, I think what you had was one truck, and I think what you ended up putting in was those file cabinets from that same building.
Oh, yes, okay.
And that's when we first encountered the double stack stuff.
Yeah, right, thank you. Yes, yeah, because we had to do it systematically, and of course, and so doing it systematically, we had to get the file cabinets in and get them situated, then the boxes situated. But anyway, then we the next day we ran into our one of the snags, and that day me and Dave did go downstairs, and I explained to him what we're looking at, and it was at the end of the day. I said, there's nothing we can do about it today, but just explain to you that the file cabinets all have 4 bolts on it and nuts, and when they put them on, they put the wrong bolts, they put the wrong nuts. I said, we're having trouble. We're on the first file cabinet, and we're the screws are they're just there's no area to, I mean, the flathead is no longer a flathead. It was just nothing to grip, nothing. So I said that right there is going to be a setback, and so we continued to look at other ones, and so all the cabinets were all 4 bolted. And I said, I said, Dave was talking that, after you get them unbolted, maybe we don't need them bolted over there because they have so much weight. I said, well, we're going to test it because, my company isn't going to do something where it should have been done. And we're going to make sure that somebody doesn't get hurt. So we're going to.
Oh, yeah, he told us about that.
So we're gonna put that to make sure that we're gonna test it anyway. So, and that's what we did. And
So what questions is
And
this?
then you also called me that night and we talked about it on the phone.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
that's when we decided that we better test it.
yeah, because we did test it, and they fell forward. And and so then again, there was more setback because we had to rebolt it, and we had purchased correct bolts and nuts and washers to properly do it, and for everything to be safe. But and then those file cabinets you take out. I mean, we move a lot of corporations, companies, so we deal with a lot of file cabinets and things of that nature. So, but we were having trouble putting them back together. They just would not, and why they wouldn't, it was just, we were clueless. And
They're old?
well, they just would not, we couldn't explain it. I mean, we were just baffled, and Dave was with us looking at it, and he goes, oh my gosh, he goes, yeah, he goes, you know what, just put this down. And there's a couple times where I had to tell him, just set it down. So we can't waste time doing this, messing around with one file cabinet. We'll have to come back to it when we got some downtime or some gap where we can continue to do, which we did. And there was a few cabinets, it was just, I don't know why. Dave said, leave it, I'll mess with it. I'll empty it out and try to deal with it myself. So there was very few, but there was a few that did stump us completely. But yeah, it did go a little further than we expected, maybe at about 10 hours altogether or so. And, but we worked hard, we worked diligently. And, honestly, those full cabinets going down those stairs at 350 pounds, I mean, the whole building had to hear each one going down. And there was no way, it was like an earthquake for one to go down. And, but for us to take out the drawers and to bring it, we're just adding more to us. We're adding more stress to our bodies. And this is just something that just had to be done physically. And there was no way that, I don't think he would have found anybody else who would have done it. You know, there's no way. I mean, I think anybody else would have
There's
back.
an understatement.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I didn't mean that.
You know, I think anybody else, any other company would have said, no way. We have better things to do. Well, yeah, and, but we're not that way. You know, we tackle, things of this nature that nobody wants just because, we got knowledge and equipment and we got backbone, but, of course, backbone gets worn,
Right, well, what question does the board have?
May I say something real
Sure.
quick here? With, Dee's permission and Lee's permission, I went over and I spent a little bit of time looking at this stuff. And the one thing that I kind of figured out was, as far as the scope of work required to remove, the screws and unstack them, you were removing 2 to 3 drawers in each cabinet, and there was 22 cabinets. So you had to remove the drawers in the cabinets, you had to remove the screws. You had to reinstall the drawers. And then once you got onto the site, you had to pull the drawers back out again. You had to stack them up, and you had to drill holes, and then you had to put the drawers back in.
Many steps.
And and the other thing is what I figured out was the file cabinets were between 80 and 100 years old. Okay? These file cabinets came over on the ark with the rest of the filing equipment here in this building. So, and they were in poor condition. There were drawers that were stuck closed that you guys had to deal with. There was drawers that were not meant to be removed or replaced completely full of files. Because the drawer slides worked independently, 2 workers were required for both removal and reinstall. So, I mean, that's kind of the bump in the road on that one.
So the short answer, not the short answer, but then the question then is, how many hours did you have in that specific part of the process? I mean, you submitted a bill that for all intents and purposes, is damn near double what you estimated. And as far as moving file cabinets up and down those stairs, I moved file cabinets up and down those stairs for 33 years. I know how much of a pain in the butt it is to go up and down those stairs, and there were no space age file cabinets in that basement when we moved them out. So I know exactly what you're talking about and exactly what he's talking about because I did it. But my question is, I understand what Dave is bringing up and what you brought up and having to take it apart, and probably the screw heads were screwed up and so on, and I get all that. But did that part of the process cost $5,000?
I came up with a figure that, and I'm calling it change order 1 of $2,640. Now that's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it took 2 men on both ends. Half an hour apiece, so we got 2 man hours per file cabinet. Oh wait, yeah, but I came up with a figure of $2,650 because putting the drawers in, taking them out required 2 people. And, there was some other things that happened, and then we also had some books that weren't identified. And my count on that was 54 books. The books themselves weren't absolutely poor condition. I mean, they were beyond poor condition. And so they required some extra help. And I put a number on that of 5 hours, and that comes out to $300.
Yeah, on top of the 2,600, or is that included?
Yeah, on top of the 2,600, so I came up with a figure of $2,940.
That we should add to the 7,000
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, it took actually 3 of us to take them file cabinets down.
Okay.
I had to have 2 people down at the bottom just to for them to safely be able to go down. And there was maybe a handful of them that actually took 4 of us. Typically, we don't like 4 guys on a file cabinet because then it, possibly can knock it off balance worse, let alone 3. But But there was a handful, maybe 4 of them that, and it took 2 guys on top, 2 guys on bottom. And, especially towards the end because, fatigue was setting in and, I mean, when you're
Right.
handling 350-pound, the guy who's on top is taking the bulk of it, and, I mean, I honestly, we physically felt it it was 2 weeks later.
Right.
We could still physically feel it in our body, but nevertheless, something like this, it's hard to tell exactly what we're gonna run into,
Right.
what we're gonna have, but.
Well, I know the first time the board had this discussion, the figure was thrown out, maybe around $10,000, and what Dave's telling us, if my math's correct, comes up to 10,740. How do we feel about a number like that?
Well, I wanna make a point and I just wanna make it because we had this discussion, it's on video. Because we record our meetings and they're uploaded, or whatever you call it. And we had this discussion. And I'm trying to figure out, I remember stating about how to make the motion and Susie said not to exceed and I said yes.
Mhm.
And had a conversation with David. And I said, I've been down this road before, where we get a low bid and then it comes back.
Mhm.
And that's why we made the motion not to exceed. At the very least, and it's water under the bridge now, and I get that. But at the very least, we should have had the conversation that this was going to exceed the $7,800 because the motion said not to.
And I sat in the meeting and I heard some discussion, but
Right.
but I didn't hear that part, so it really was incumbent upon somebody to let Joe know that it wasn't to exceed $7,800 because,
Well, and the email part went to the auditor's office, which we didn't see till after all this came up. So yes, I understand what you're saying and appreciate that. The one thing that speaks to me that could help me justify doing the 10,740 is the safety factor. If you hadn't done that safety test, who knows, it could be 2 months, it could be 20 years. Somebody would have pulled something down and we'd have had a huge either workman's comp or safety accident on our hand that would have cost us a heck of a lot more than this.
you know,
So we appreciate the safety factor.
when
Yeah.
when you put everything together, it paints one picture, but when you start breaking this thing down, it paints an entirely different picture.
Right.
The single, and I'm calling them move files, those are the first files that Joe moved down there. It was 6, and I did an estimate, I counted a couple sections, and I did an estimate for 16,800 of those. Okay, so that's 16,800 individual files that were taken off the rack, put into boxes, kept in order, and then taken over to the other end. And then at the other end, you've got another 16,800 that you're going to unbox and put back in there. And you talk about maybe 2 or 3 cents a piece on those files that you run over, and all of a sudden you're looking at some large numbers. And I can tell you that from the minute that his crew showed up on this site, they never stopped, they never slowed down. They were here all the hours that you got billed for. And I don't know how, I don't believe any contractor out there could have got it done any better. I'm a professional worker. There aren't many of us left.
Mhm.
There's another professional worker sitting right there. And his crew was right on the whole time. You know, I don't know what else to say about it. I
Susie?
just,
I'm sitting there thinking we've made a lot of mistakes in this.
well, there was some mistakes made and they were made by everybody. Joe was
Yeah.
a little bit low, there was, there was lots of little things that happened along the way too, and I've got a note as far as some of that. And I called it just contributing factors to overage. Existing boxes moved, and that's the file boxes. There are 84 of those boxes. If some of those boxes were in poor condition and required taking.
And I want to stop right there for a second. And I don't dispute any of what you're saying, and I don't, but my point is, and has been from the get-go, I understand not seeing the screws and the fact that they were, however many file cabinets there were that were bolted together, whatever term you want to use, and having to take the drawers out. And I understand all that. But when we're talking about the boxes and the open files and all of that, you had a visual inspection. And as far as I'm concerned, that those kind of things should have been taken into account or determined before making the bid. You know, you were all down there. And you had, you said to us here very eloquently, you know, your experience and everything that you've done, and I'm looking at it, and I think I'm putting it in the context that, to my way of thinking, some of that should have been observed and understood when the bid was made, because we took the bid at face value.
Well,
And I understand the costs that are associated with the unknowns that you found, and I don't think any of us dispute that. And I know exactly what you're talking about as far as taking those file cabinets down and file cabinets up. And I know how difficult it is, and I know it because we did it with two people. And it is a very unsafe process. I don't dispute that at all. And then when you have the added weight of 100-year-old file cabinets, I get it, and I agree with you. I guess, you know, the board can move forward and decide what it is we want to do. I just felt like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Susie,
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How much of those file cabinets down there actually belong to the county?
None of them.
Right. We, in hindsight, we should have asked the court. We should have told them, we need you to vacate this. Because we're arguing about something that wasn't ours initially to take care of. So now we're into it. We've got to take care of it and move on. Maybe I think we've learned a big lesson from this. You know, we can't clean up everybody else's mess. I'm sorry.
Speaking of which,
Oh, no.
speaking of which, the clerk of court's office is now making new boxes and storing them underneath the church pews in the magistrate's office up there. And they even put another table up there.
let's
And-
put that on the agenda next week and
and-
have them down and discuss.
And they're putting boxes under there. And
Shouldn't
then
everything go over there?
everything from here went there, but all the new boxes are because they have no place to put them.
Is there room over there for them?
We're not gonna keep them over there.
Well, they,
I don't understand why they're not just electronically recording this stuff.
Well,
And you've
well,
said that
that's-
before.
let's
Well,
meet
that's-
with them.
Well, that's my point. Is
Well, you know, if they
because-
just give us a notice, maybe in 3 years, we'll have enough money saved up, we can move those two.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
But at the same time, Anna upstairs asked me if it would be possible to get some more storage over at DHS, because they have more things that they'd like to move over there.
How long do they have to keep this stuff? Is it forever?
Well, they've got old furniture, they've got all kinds of stuff, and you know, it's one thing to
We
put
don't need
file
the
cabinets
furniture,
over there
the
in a
files.
specific area.
I'm looking at
It
Chauncey.
depends on the type of case, civil file is shorter, so, and they're always going to be generating records.
So why don't they just sell their old furniture?
I'm
Why
sorry.
should we store it?
I think that's a conversation we should ask them.
I think we should invite them to. a
Maybe not
meeting.
ask them,
Yeah,
just
I
say,
agree.
we need you to do this.
Anyway, let's go back to Mr.
Let's get to the issue today and invite them to talk about, what would we call it?
Get your butt down here. We want to talk.
Take care of your own work.
Future, present and future storage of court records? I don't know.
We'll
Abby,
put it
can
in
you come
our
up with some discuss and consider agenda item, please? Can you please let them know?
Good
Yep.
job, Abby.
Thank you.
You still have two other rooms that are completely
Next
full of clerk of courts files. One is the vault in the, in the treasury is absolutely full of files. And then you've got the room directly underneath that, which is completely full of files, and those.
Okay.
are quick, of course.
We'll talk about that next week with them. Let's get back to the issue of the day.
Good job.
We thank you for coming. What do you want to do?
You know,
I do want to make a point. I want you to understand that from my perspective, I don't doubt you. And I believe that you did a phenomenal job. But the sticker shop was, I think we really should have had. Been apprised.
so D,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
in the second day we were here, when I was telling this, the situation to, Dave, I was telling him, I said, we're not gonna be in that area of the estimated cost. And he explained to say, as long as we can show that, you know,
Right.
that
Okay, Susie, you wanted to say something?
so what's acceptable?
I'd say, and like I said, because of the safety factor, if you hadn't done it correctly, we'd face something cost down the road. I would,
we could have took shortcuts.
Yeah, and you
if
didn't,
it's not,
so-
No,
I think this board should appreciate that and go with the 10,740. Would that be work?
I would second that.
Okay, do we have any more discussion?
No, well, I would say this gentleman and his company have done the right thing. As I said before, I think we have dropped the ball on this, not him.
Well, I think that that's a discussion that I was gonna suggest that we have down the road, as far as how we handle work that is not going through a contractor.
Right. Anyway, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
All in favor?
What was the number again?
Wait a minute, 10,740.
And we arrived at that how?
Dave's estimate of adding the 2940 based on your assessment that you told us, and then an additional 300 for books in poor condition.
Well, that's just on that end.
Oh, you said the change order with the file cabinets.
Well, the original estimate was for $7,800, less $255 for the books, for the boxes and tape. New estimate total was at $7,545. Total change order, with the new estimate comes to $9,485. So it's paid $7,800, leaving a balance with just the change orders of $1,685. So here's the other part. The other part is bill amount not covered by change orders is $3,273. So that's why I was trying to say that there are other contributing factors, and the contributing factors really go to the total amount of stuff that was moved and just a few minutes here and there that it took to be a little bit different.
Before you guys vote, I just wanted to make sure that the gentleman from Best Move was agreeable to settling this for the 10,700 number. Is that agreeable?
Well, I'm at your guys' mercy, you know, I mean, of course, I would like to get as much as I can to that amount that I have billed for, but when it comes right down to it, I appreciate anything you can do, and I want to work with you, because I want to come back here and work with the understanding when I do work, I need to know that I need to present a price that's just not going to be any more than that. And, and again, so I'm at your mercy, and what I need to do to gain your confidence and your business again, I'm willing.
So we have a motion for $10,740. We have a second. Any
I
more
did second it
discussion?
already.
Yeah,
Chauncey, was that satisfactory?
Well, it sounds, yeah, it's satisfactory. It sounds like you know, whatever the board authorizes. This was a bid that was accepted, so. Legally speaking, that's the contract, that's the agreement, and there were some change orders made, but, I think it's understood that. Best Move is not gonna come out the county for the remaining 3,000, is that right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion in a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
Take care.
Okay, how about, since we have a pretty long agenda, let's take a 5-minute break. It is 9:45. We'll come back at 9:50. Does that work? Is that long enough or you need a
Go.
longer break? I'm gonna go. It's hot in here.
Yeah, we all need a break. We're gonna get a sunburn.
When they leave, lock the
It's
door.
never hot in here.
You can't adjourn if you don't have police block up here though.
Lock the door.
Yeah. Are you? It's not a Christmas.
You already took your break.
I know.
And there's a new. one. I just,
Didn't step out.
No, I just went downstairs.
I'm afraid.
Those paper
Huh?
towels.
Yeah,
I seem
come
to
back and
run
have
some
to
snow
readjust
anyway,
all
and I
of
don't
These?
wanna track up the carpet, the paper
A
towels.
little slick in town.
Oh,
Well, I come in
oh,
about.
sorry.
You can tell. that
You know, Dwayne, I think you got some good
You
people
know how to
hired.
drive. Gotta learn all to go over it. It says Copper doesn't
Never
actually
this
down.
one.
Maine
I
and
don't know.
Fillmore,
What there?
that's what they said. It's
I promise mine won't take that long.
Somebody stopped and it wasn't the stop sign or they hadn't turned the
Yes,
sign yet
sir.
or something.
Sorry
I didn't
about my
understand.
The school bus.
You can
else
speak
is
with me, we can just set a public hearing
Who went?
for the vacating
else.
of the
Oh.
118th
What's the
Street,
name?
which apparently is not even.
No,
118th.
we're-
But he usually stops at the quality quick.
It's called
We
something
get-
else.
Yeah, you come in carrying a cup and call it quality quick.
Oh,
County required to shit about carrying
I
his
know.
own drink.
And at
the detriment of the courthouse. It's Woody's.
So
birthday.
anyway, that's where I was.
I mean, if you
thinking,
guys say you need to
thinking
move
that
that
you were
shit
talking
someplace
about
else.
that, and then,
Well, the thing is,
but
my underlying.
we'll set it for a public hearing.
Bring them back out
So that
one
you
of
can
them for
help us
tomorrow
schedule.
morning for you.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of it.
Imagine that.
Quick reference if you want.
Dwayne, what are y'all dressed up for? Do you have a job interview?
What we're talking.
No.
I have a stain on my sleeve of my shirt, so I have to wear something to hide my
That's
stain.
It's Rice Street.
We just cut the stain out. That's
Surely not sweat, is it?
What?
What? Oh, listen to you.
Oh my God. No.
No, it's pizza.
Yeah,
Up
and one of
there?
your neighbors called.
I
to
guess
talk to me
flailing around in the truck this
prior
morning
to
after you
being
stopped.
presented.
How I got
Well,
pizza
you
on
did,
my,
didn't you?
on my sleeve.
Wiping your mouth on it, I suppose.
Him today, you and I,
Okay.
I could come
so he was okay with it.
But it's usually cold in here, so.
Before we snow up your way?
It was really light at Kelowna and Washington, and by the time I got to just a little bit north of Brighton, it got real serious about
She's the person who's.
it. When I stopped for gas, I texted Bub and Jess to let them know it's probably ought to consider salt. Salt and sand.
I think
I have a radio.
things are gonna go quite well. It's a- I do.
So
Should.
what I'm doing is
Just
I'm not gonna worry about.
It should be a lot easier.
You don't
Yeah,
wanna.
the guys have a lot of respect for Jess.
Just worked with my brother at Agri
She has
Industrial
to
Plant.
figure out.
And they're also,
I'm not worried about
Everybody's
it.
saying
This
how
is-
hot
this
it
is
is in
the
here.
thing.
previously the assistant was more.
Oh, you think it's hot?
Just there for emergencies.
Yeah.
You know, if Billy was
But I thought we were probably
going
talking to you
to
about.
put a little more on Bub's shoulders than what he had. And get a
So she was
little
kind
more,
of.
be a little more productive, I think.
You got, you and he have 10 more minutes.
Over a driveway that actually goes down this house.
Right.
But
It was a shit, right? Yeah, it's actually, you know, I'm-
since they're not having public hearing on the vacation, I'm gonna
And
go
so
back to
I
work.
shared it. It wasn't an issue.
Right.
I wish I could go. Didn't realize it was gonna be this long.
Cut it up, so get somebody helping or.
It's the only
It hasn't been an hour and a half yet.
I left my other snack in the car. I'm gonna have to go get, I'm gonna need food, Susie.
I know.
We'll get a-
We got Dwayne here. He does other duties as a
At least got
sign.
pizza sauce on his sleeve.
It's 9:49.
I got a
I
piece,
promise I'm not gonna take
Oh,
that
I mean,
long.
I got a
I
pizza.
know,
will
the
send out
clears
the
never
notices,
does.
So I will
Just the way I
be
like
making
it.
sure that
I got a piece of pizza at World West Land section.
Somewhere?
Yeah, Dean signed off, it's just this.
They have good pizza.
Yeah, they
That's
did.
what
Yeah.
it's Wright
Sauce is
Street. That's what it is,
Yeah.
that
That's what it's
portion.
like.
All right,
where
it's
it's-
9:50.
Abby's done
Where's
that.
Abby?
I'm talking about Wright Street,
She's putting on more sunscreen.
Yeah.
We just took the street name off of Wendy's website.
I
That was
know,
probably
I
there.
know, and that was the problem.
We'll start as soon as we have the secretary back.
It
Joe
also
could do
says
that.
that all of those have already been vacated, which it was rescinded, so.
That's what I'm all across that. Yeah.
Think so?
Are you talking the Wright Street?
Yes.
Yes.
Stand up.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got early childhood.
After you, Miss.
All right, we are back. Okay, welcome to our assessor. And this is our annual allow and disallow family farm credits as recommended by assessor.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Steve, what do you have to tell us?
This is the family farm credits. We don't have anything to sign this year. It was all, everything that changed was because of, either a sale or a death.
Okay,
But the state requires, we accept the applications and allow, or recommend allowance and disallowance, and you guys have to make the allowance and disallowance. That's what it boils down to.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thanks, Steve.
We have the next one too.
Discuss and consider closing courthouse for Christmas dinner.
Oh, that's you?
I guess that's what
So you're catering it in, right?
I am actually.
Actually, the newly elected officials should do that.
So.
I'll tell my wife.
That would be good.
You wanna be there?
So, last year they closed the courthouse for an hour over lunch. I was at a class that week, so I wasn't here, but I had several people say they'd like to do that again, but I thought maybe since it's the courthouse, maybe you guys ought to
Yeah.
say yes or no or whatever.
Do we need to vote on that or just be knowledgeable of that?
We're looking at Thursday, December 19th. From noon to 1.
We have a motion.
That's central time.
What's that?
Central time.
Central time, yeah.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Fine.
Aye.
Okay,
Good to see now, I'm hungry.
number 8, discuss and consider resolution establishing Jefferson County Comp Board. I thought we did this, but apparently we have to do something better.
You voted on it, there's a resolution, it's, basically.
So we've already done this. This is the
Yeah.
formal part. So do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Number 9, discuss and consider resolution in the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office for step increase for Brendan Shore.
Finally,
Hi, Bart.
good morning.
He's got another year in his belt.
It's Tuesday.
Good morning.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, this is all, normal. Brendan started 85, had an increase. Halfway, he'll move to the 100% of a deputy sheriff after almost 18 months. So,
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, number 10, discuss and consider resolution for step increase for Philip Smith, deputy sheriff.
Deputy Phil Smith, is currently at 85% of the deputy pay. His agreement will be effective January 1. He'll go in between approximately 92%. He won't be at 100% yet. He's gonna go to what Deputy Lunsford was making.
We have
Motion.
Second.
a motion and a second, any discussion on favor?
Aye.
Wait, that was quick. Sorry, see it.
All right, number 11, discuss and consider membership to Chamber of Commerce. Oops.
Oops, sorry.
Okay.
Motion to join the chamber.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second, I guess the question is,
Who's gonna be in it?
yeah,
You can figure that out the first meeting you have in January when you do committee assignments.
No.
I just didn't know whether the membership had to have a specific name on it before you paid it.
I don't know, I can wait that long.
Well, we could put to be determined.
There you go. All right,
Congratulations, Joe.
we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
12, discuss and consider obligating remaining ARPA funds.
So does Shannon need to be here to move on?
That's what she
need,
just brought.
we need
She
to
gave us a,
obligate those.
before the
The
end of the
question
month,
is where?
right? And so it looks like available funds to commit are $302,475. Here, Elizabeth, do you want to copy this?
Oh.
So I know in the past, we've informally just. Now we have to get an ambulance. Is that on our list? And the way it works is by the ARPA funds, I think it's December 26th, it just has to be designated. And it doesn't have to be spent
Right.
until December of
A year.
26.
So I have a question. And you guys are much more familiar with this than I am, and I'm at this moment in time in favor of designating it to the ambulance, but my question is. If something comes up, can you redesignate those funds at a later date?
I don't believe so. I don't know. I think that you have to designate them officially by that date.
One of the drop dead date.
That will be a question for Jamie Cashman at ISAC. He's been very involved in this. So I would ask that to him.
I mean, what about the broadband money? You've designated it, but it sounds like you may or may not be spending it. So wouldn't that fall into that category? That it has a dezgnation, but it could change.
Yeah,
But
Right.
that's not
Well-
really due to the board's actions, right? I mean, if we don't pay something because the contract falls through or whatever it may be, that's different than saying we're gonna designate it, we're gonna change it.
I'll tell you what, good questions. I can email Jamie or give him a
If you
call.
do that and we can put this on the agenda for next week, I
Yep.
would appreciate it.
Yep. So can we redesignate ARPA funds after December of 24 is the question.
Well, and by extension. If there's no follow through on contract. The funds that have already been designated, because a portion of those funds have already been expended.
Remember, this money could very well disappear if it's not designated.
Right, and I'm perfectly fine personally of designating it towards. The ambulance, and that gives you broad scope, but
What?
what. Abby brought up is an excellent point too, because. We're looking at this and there seems to be no. Desire or whatever on. You know, the past agreement to move forward on that, and so we may.
You're talking Liberty Communications.
Right.
That's a different conversation.
Right,
but
what
I-
I'm saying is that it's all parted in the same context. that
Right.
Through no fault of our own, if that
Right,
falls through the cracks, so to speak.
right. We'll get him on the agenda hopefully for next week. And
You might ask if we could choose a secondary avenue for that money from Liberty if this falls through.
I
I
would think we
personally think
could.
we're okay.
It would make sense, but who knows? If that makes sense, if we can do that. Okay, we'll find out. Any more questions? All right. It would be helpful to have a somewhat, not necessarily a bid, but a pretty good idea of what an ambulance would cost.
Well,
Is it gonna be the
yeah,
whole?
and I
Probably,
think
And so if you get an ambulance, where are you gonna park it? You've got three.
one's
Yeah,
ready to
sure.
the
retire.
2016.
So were we gonna hold on to that money? I mean, I think we gotta make sure the ambulance can survive with money before we think of buying a new ambulance. I'm sorry.
We gotta get revenue.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I think we have a little time to deal with this.
Are there other ideas other than the ambulance on spending ARPA money on?
I
That's it.
think we need to take a look at the reports that have already been done and see if it isn't already obligated.
That's
Can
what
you do-
Shannon did. That's what that report is.
Oh, that's what this
No,
is.
I'm talking
What?
about when we were working on a report last year, it appeared they had already been obligated.
Well,
That's
you're,
because it was done incorrectly by the previous.
I know that, but what I'm saying is, they might already think we've done it.
can you look that up this week?
Yeah, I was
please?
gonna get with Shannon and do
Okay,
that,
good.
which
And
is why I
stay
asked
tuned.
for
We'll
more
put this
time.
on next week. Okay, thank you. Discuss and consider old assessor's office remodel and purpose.
I think the old assessor's office needs spiffed up. And I would like to see the auditor's office move all the voting equipment down there.
Can it fit in one of those side areas?
Well, you've got 3 rooms down there, the large one, 408 square foot. The room that would make the most sense is the one that has the 2 French doors on it.
Mhm.
Because the room can be isolated, it doesn't have to be part of anything else that's going on down there, so you could still use the common area. For public meetings or whatever you have. The other room, it's got French doors right now, we can make that lockable, we can make it secure. If need be, we can reduce that down to 1 door. And then put more of a secure door on it. I believe that the total cost to do the painting down there and the wall repair and everything else, because I think we can reuse some paint that we've got. I think you're looking at about $1,000 if I'm doing all the work, and that's basically everything with the exception of the flooring. Now, the flooring in that space can remain as it is right now, no need to change anything in there. And the other thing you could do in that space is instead of building racks in there, get some metal racks in there. Because the metal racks, I mean,
You can move them.
I could get together with Abby, we figure out what her needs are, and then I could go to like Menards and
Yeah.
find out what the cost would be up front before you committed to that end, but right now, we can make all the improvements over the winter time while I am going to have some additional time. Because
Well,
I'm not.
Will all the machines fit in that French room door?
It will, with the knowledge also that we would use that bigger space. You know, having it available for our conference room since we don't really have one, but knowing that we would need that to public test the machines.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then Joe can attest to it, Lee can attest to what the old room was like for recounting 9,000 ballots and 3 recount members and auditor's office staff and observers. It was tight.
Well, it would make
It was a much
sense.
better space to have. We had 3 machines going and 3 observers, 3 recount members, 2 auditor's office staff,
Right,
3 machines, 9,000 ballots, and we had all the machines out as well, like the bags, and
right. It
there
would
was
make,
space.
Yeah.
makes sense that if it's a conference room, the auditor's office is the keeper of the calendar.
That's what I
and
was gonna
people
say, they
just
should be in
reserve-
control of it.
Yeah, just reserve it if they need to use it.
Yeah.
And that's what we have been doing for that smaller space.
Right.
We just don't have the.
Yeah.
It would be nice for the auditors when they come to audit
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that you've got down there is we've got a mini split in that space.
Okay.
So it's gonna give you the perfect climate to be putting your electronic gear in, where right now it's stored underneath this vault here, where we've got a big moisture problem.
And it's cold.
And
Well-
we have a cart that has 24 laptops. We have 12 of the handicap machines and 14 or 15 of the actual scanners themselves. So we have, and then 24 printers. We have quite a bit of equipment
Yeah.
that is kind of stored. I mean, the printers are stored upstairs in the freezing cold and then super
Would you have a
hot.
problem with being in charge of who goes in and out of there to use it for something?
We do that now for that
I know, I
space
just want to go on
downstairs.
record with that.
Right.
Okay,
We're fine with that.
The
We have
auditors-
a calendar.
The auditor's office is supposed to be with the like coordinator of the courthouse
Yeah.
stuff. Yes.
I was involved in the recount and I think everything should be put in that one room because Abby left what, 3 times, 4 times? She went clear to the attic for some things and then
Sure.
up to the assessor's office. So everything should be in that one room to save all of that extra time and stuff.
Joe, she has to feed the bats up there once a day.
She
Alright.
didn't see you up there.
So,
Having everything in one location
Yeah.
rather than 3 or
Yeah.
4 definitely would be
Yes.
more efficient.
what I am hearing is to store voting equipment down there and use as a conference room, and Dave can use old paint and keep it,
I will use whatever I can.
Right.
I have to buy some new paint for the
You
ceiling
will?
because I'm gonna use a latex dry fall so it can be sprayed in there and it's not gonna make too big a mess and whatever does. Well, you know, I go ahead and cover up the floors and everything before I do that, but
and then there'd still be that other little room to be something
well,
to be determined.
that one, in order to use it, I'd have to put up a wall across there and put a door and frame in, and that's really no big deal. I mean, you're talking, you know, for pre-hung door, probably $150 or something like that, another 25 for hardware. And then probably about $300 in wooden studs and drywall. So that's not much, but the other thing that we talked about in the last meeting is that I want to be able to rent my pump to you for a period of 6 hours at $25 an hour, because I have to buy a pump anyway, but I don't have to buy a pump until next August. That's when I'm gonna need it. So,
Thanks, Joe.
Um,
uh,
For spring,
fearless,
oh, okay,
because
fearless.
we don't have one, which saves us money.
right, no, I've just with,
Well, you know, 99% of the time around here when I do something, it's with my own personal tools. And it doesn't matter whether it's ladders or whatever it may be. I've made a policy of not buying tools and equipment that aren't going to be needed beyond the project that I'm involved in. So for 7 years, I've been using my own tools for 90% of what's been done around.
Well,
And
we appreciate all that you have done, and you've really done a lot to update the courthouse. And I know this board going forward is going to need to start working sooner than later on the job description and what the purpose is for the position going forward, hopefully with your help
there's
involved on working on that.
There's lots of nuts and bolts and screws around here that I don't think anybody's really aware of, and I wasn't aware of it either until I got into it, but. You know, as far as I'm concerned, until the job's done, I don't plan on leaving, so I'm gonna be here a while.
All right, well, there you go.
works for me.
Just make sure when that's on your radar, along as possible notice.
I will.
I know you will.
Just-
Okay, so do we have a motion for the old assessor's office remodel and purpose?
I don't know exactly how the motion would go, but I would make a motion that, do we give control and jurisdiction over the old assessor's office to the auditor's office? For
Oh, yeah.
voting equipment and other necessary needs.
Yes.
Well,
Call it Abby's room.
no, well, I'd say that one room with the French doors, but I think the other one should be known as a common space that anybody can
But it
use.
said over
But
the
they've got
jurisdiction. It
But
goes
they
through
have,
the-
they coordinate
yeah.
the calendar.
Right,
So
Yeah.
I'm using coordinate, you're using control.
yeah.
But I think the board needs to maintain control of who goes where in the building,
Well, I mean,
but they coordinate it, but it should work out
I don't
fine.
want anybody to assume that they can have possession of that office,
Correct.
period.
Right,
It's under the jurisdiction of the auditor.
right.
Well, they'd have
That's
to get,
we've
they'd have to
said
get
that
a key from either Abby or me, so. That's what I have.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Do you have any discussion? In favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, moving on, discuss a nuisance ordinance.
can I have to have a question? We've got moisture in the recorder's office. I know you're aware of it. Is that got anything to do with the company you hired and it's not working
Moisture,
behind business?
that's part of the problem that we're trying to take care of with that money that was spent to get rid of the moisture
Yeah.
in the building.
Yeah.
So one thing that's happening is because the units are located downstairs, which is where we want them, because we want them to interact with the moisture that is being whipped up into the building first. So the first thing was to stop that. The second part of what happens is the moisture that's in the wall starts falling.
Okay,
And so it's gonna have an impact on everything. And that office in particular, we don't seem to have the problem in the Veterans Affairs office, and I don't think we've got the problem where Scott's at either, in Darcy. So that's kind of an isolated problem, but that's probably one of the worst areas in the building. And I'm seeing some signs in the stairwell that I painted, that I completed a year and a half ago or whatever. That's exactly, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, because I am getting some blistering in the paint, but it's at a level where we haven't had it before. The very top of it is high and dry, but it looks like as it's wicking down in the building, then we're starting to get some concentrated areas, and that's what I talked about before, is we want this process to complete itself so that I'm still here and I can go back into those areas and do any patch, paint, repair, or whatever may be necessary.
yeah, that was my question, was, is it working? And you're indicating that it is working.
I believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it, from what I can see, it is.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, discuss nuisance ordinance.
Okay, so we discussed this previously, and I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention again, because we do have some pending nuisance cases in magistrate court that are active. And some individuals have expressed that maybe they wanted to get further, maybe like appealing to the board, so I just want to know, revisit this topic again and see how you're all feeling now that, Russ is no longer employed by the county, and how you foresee,
Well,
dealing with nuisance.
just to recap the process we've been through, we've been almost full circle. So it used to be very subjective. We got a very non-subjective process in place. And now I think the board's at the point, due to staffing, money, other decisions, there is another way other than the county handling this, and that's already a state law on the books. So do we need to have a nuisance ordinance? Was really the question.
Just so you guys know, that this is out there with people that are engaged in active cases before the magistrates. So in conversations with those individuals on active cleanups, to say, well, this law's going away anyway. Well, case has already been filed, but people with active cases before the magistrate do track the board's considerations on this.
Well, yeah, and the process, to my understanding, is that it would come before you guys. So it's whether or not you want to continue to enforce those and how you feel about what this looks like going forward.
Well, I know in the past, and we haven't had any come to the board for several years, but it's difficult because it's kind of like we wanted to let the process work. So what, I want to make sure I understand. So if we repeal the nuisance ordinance, it will definitely come to this board, but if we don't, it'll play out in the courts. Is that correct?
Well, if we repeal the nuisance ordinance, there's nothing to come before the board.
Right.
True,
And by playing out in the courts, essentially there's a civil cause of action that a neighbor can take.
right.
The government would have no
And we've-
involvement.
We've talked about this off and on for years.
I think our issue is, well, I'll rephrase that. I think my issue is, I'm not. How do I say this? I've always said that if we're not going to enforce the ordinance, then let's repeal it, but if we're going to continue to enforce it. There are options that the board has. We don't necessarily have to go in and clean it up. And expend those funds to do that, but having the ordinance on the books gives us some. Leverage as far as that part of it goes. And to coin your phrase, which was accurate, it makes it less subjective and more objective as far as, you know, if you have the ordinance. And we are in a catch-22 situation. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and financially. But I asked the question now from a legal end, you know, we determined that we can be the arbiter of those properties that are way behind to go up for tax sale. And they don't get sold, and we take the property and we become the tax sale purchaser, so to speak, if you will. It's not the legal term, but if we eliminate that nuisance ordinance, does that take away our ability to do that?
It shouldn't impact, I don't think it would impact your ability under like tax sale, because that's a separate issue. That's my understanding. I will say though, kind of along the lines of the tax sale issues, obviously we've experienced if the county does abate something and assesses those abatement costs to the taxes of that property, then that will impact whether or not anyone purchases it at tax sale, which is something that we've experienced too. So that's just another point to consider.
Because where I'm at personally is, and I, you know, we've got property X up here, we got property Y up there. And I don't think we'll ever recoup those dollars, but if we eventually get jurisdiction on that property where we can issue a quick claim deed on the, with the proviso that Mr. Molding will deed this property over to you if you clean it up, but you have to clean it up first, then we'll deed it over to you free and clear. For the, you know, I don't know that that's the thought process, and a lot of that's not gonna happen in any time soon, but I think the idea is to try and get the properties cleaned up, recoup some of, you know, put it back on tax rolls where they're actually getting taxes paid, and that we're not expending any more money cleaning up properties that we don't have.
But you are assuming that a property that has a nuisance is a property that is not having their taxes, you know, like the taxes
Right.
aren't being paid on. So
Right.
that, you know, that's the assumption,
That's,
right?
well, in
And
some
that doesn't always
instances.
happen.
That doesn't always. happen.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. No, I agree. But my point simply is that it is a tool in our box for those circumstances. And then the other is that, well, we found out, and I don't know what we're at now, but we found out there was 31 properties that we in theory inherited on that tax sales haven't been, they weren't sold at tax sale. So we can get those properties. So it's a kind of a, there's some benefits in both ways, but if I don't want to say this, I'm not particularly excited about trying to enforce a nuisance ordinance, but I'm not sure it benefits us to let it completely go away.
I'm not sure how I feel about it, only because given the fact that the legislature is going to continue to cut property taxes, this might be one place that if we repeal it, it's like, we don't have the funds and that's just it.
Well, but can we not and I'm asking this can we not revisit the ordinance, change its structure and its fining process? In other words, you know, how we implement fines.
The answer is yes. Of course, you can revisit it. I'm not sure exactly what you're considering. Are you just considering instead of abating and then assessing that on the taxes, that you simply fine somebody for being in violation of a nuisance ordinance?
If you want to just ticket them.
Continuous fine until it's cleaned up.
And who would enforce that? Who would be if we don't
Well,
have
that's-
Ross?
That's right. That's a $64 question that I don't have an answer to.
And I think that's why I wanted to just revisit this again, because if we don't have any kind of enforcement mechanism, then how would we go about?
So let me give you, and let me ask you a hypothetical. So Joe doesn't clean up his property and we have a $5,000 fine. You know, the limit's $5,000, I think, in small claims court. I don't know if you file it in district court, if you file it in small claims, I don't know. What I'm saying is that, so we send Joe a letter and say, Joe, if you don't clean this up, we're going to take you to court. We're gonna fine you $5,000. And then it becomes under the court's jurisdiction when that fine is implemented in terms of you're in violation of a court order, rather than the county board of supervisors going, we're gonna put it on your property taxes. And it goes back to what you said, nobody's gonna buy the property anyway, because there's this outstanding amount of,
You're talking about the enforcement mechanism being a contempt of court order and jailing the person.
Which, I mean, so I have had experience with that. So
Okay.
somebody was on a payment plan to pay off their civil penalty, which was $750. They get behind on their payment plan. We can issue a warrant, we can have them picked up, we can have them put in the, I mean, like, it's gonna continue to cost the county money to
Right.
kind of
One way
continue
or
to
the other.
enforce it, one way or the other, unless you have a model citizen who's like, yes, I have this nuisance infraction and I'm just gonna pay it every single month and, you know,
I think we had those like the first year or two, and those got cleaned up, and now oftentimes it's people that don't have the means to care for it. So again, we
Well,
have
some of the
seen, we
ones that-
have done and seen this whole process work. And I think it's time that we really look at maybe repealing it. I'd like,
Well,
because I know the attorneys spend a lot of hours on this, and I'd like to know from your perspective. And I'm not sure how to ask this, because it's not all about you, it's about the process. And given that we have these repeaters, it's like the system has issues anyway, just by virtue of many
so,
things.
so what we're saying then, and correct me if I'm wrong. If Joe doesn't clean up his property, we don't have a nuisance ordinance, then the only recourse for the neighbor is Susie taking them to court, so.
Right. It gets the government out of it.
violates her own property rights, you know.
Right.
Enjoyment and use.
Practically speaking, almost nobody's gonna do that.
Do what?
Practically speaking, the number of neighbors that are
Right,
gonna
yeah.
sue neighbors, I can think of maybe one.
They're
you
gonna
know,
come here and
Complain to
we're
you.
gonna say, there's nothing we can do about it.
You're gonna tell them they have a private cause of action and then they won't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, and I don't know what the numbers were, but I'm certain that there were quite a few neighbors who were calling in on other neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were,
complaining of
when the
nuisance.
supervisors were involved in
Yeah.
this.
And my frustration, and I'm sure it's Dee and Susie's as well, and your guys' is actually, you know, we've had, shall we say, 2 repeat offenders that continue to repeat, even though one of them is paying the fine. They are still, or not their fine, but their cleanup costs, they're still repeating. They're not
Right,
taking care of the property, and we can't afford to go back in and it's, you're right, it's like a dog chasing its tail. I get that and I understand that completely. My other question is, if we repeal the ordinance, do we not have to have a public hearing to do so?
We would,
Okay,
yeah.
It's a discussion on what you wanna do.
Yeah, it's just a discussion about, because at one point we talked about amending it and we kind of just left it open. And so I'm not sure if you want to just direct me as to what you're thinking.
could we do this? Could we have a public hearing just to see what the public has to say on the issue?
You can always have a public hearing. It's up to you.
Before we would act on it? I don't know, I'm just asking procedurally, because oftentimes we do something, then we ask for the public hearing. That, I don't know how the public feels on this, really, but the issue is gonna come down to money.
Right.
My guess is that most people don't care. People with nuisance properties care one way and people next to nuisance properties care the other. You're gonna have
Exactly.
10 people show up to your public hearing and 5 are gonna feel one way and 5 the other way.
Right.
Just a guess.
So Susie,
and so
thoughts?
those ones that we've already cleaned up their property and we put it on their property taxes. And I don't know where we're at, say, for example, on the one that's out west of town, the one up in another community. Do those payments go away?
No,
Mm-mm.
Okay,
it's a done deal.
okay, I wasn't sure how that,
How many are in process now? Ballpark.
4 or 5.
Okay.
Potentially, yeah. I mean,
I don't have a strong feeling either way. I just know finances are gonna be very tight and that's,
So if there was an ordinance in place at the time of the violation, does the violation still not stand?
Of course, yeah, it's a risk you gotta, if it's been ordered. If it's still in process, the question is at the time of the violation.
Mhm.
Right. I think it's a loser. In terms of, we just don't have, we don't have any teeth in our ordinance that we as a board can use because of our financial constraints. That's,
I think the key here is that you don't have an investigative mechanism at this point and an enforcement mechanism without Russ. So unless,
Mhm.
and we don't have the resources to hire anybody. So that's the reason, to me, I'm starting to lean towards
and
just.
even if we had an enforcement mechanism or somebody to do it, cleaning up properties is something that we just can't do either, because we can't wait 10 years to recoup those costs. And I don't know, Susie, I'm open to suggestions.
I was just sitting here thinking,
That's dangerous.
I know, you know, those properties are a safety hazard.
Yes, they are. You are right.
And that's
Public
addressed
health
in,
should be dealing with that.
that's, the safety issue is addressed in the state code.
So can I be the devil's advocate?
Does it
Please.
fall
So
under
if you
environmental health?
repeal it, these properties are just gonna get worse and worse and worse.
But they get cleaned up and they go back and get worse, so that the cycle doesn't get broken.
But you put it onto their taxes,
Mhm.
which they don't pay. And the county eventually ends up with it. How long before the county can resell that property? How long do they have to redeem it?
They have 19 months to redeem, and then there's another 4 or 5 months of processes. And then we collect 2%. It's a 24% annual interest, and they have to pay it at 100% to redeem the property.
After how long? 2 years, you say?
Basically 2 years, okay? But the issue is that we have to have the financial wherewithal to go in and clean up the property, which we do not have. So for example, we spent $27,000 out west of town. You wouldn't know it to look at it,
I guess.
okay? But the point is that we did.
The point is, we really have tried this system full circle. And it worked and it didn't work,
And
because
some
we
of
did
them
get
have-
some
You know,
properties
we did
cleaned
one
up.
up in Lenby, they took care of it right away. We
Mhm.
did one up in Bogus. They're making payments, but it's a 10-year payback. We have to, you, the taxpayer, have to pay that up front. And then, yes, we're collecting a little bit of interest on it, to be sure, but
It's like Chauncey said, neighbors aren't gonna spend money to take them to court. They're just gonna grumble about it all the time.
Right, but being devil's advocate in today's environment, when people don't like property taxes, this is gonna cost to keep it. I mean, even though
Well,
we don't have a
and-
person,
but
it's
and
gonna
to
have a
Susie's
system
point,
cost.
we've got property out there that's got hazardous material and whatnot on it, and if we don't have a mechanism in place to deal with that,
well, it depends on what's hazardous material. I mean,
Okay.
that's a separate issue than, let's say, overgrown weeds and too many junk cars, right?
Just plain trash in the yard that should be put in a dumpster.
Right, that's a county issue.
old broken down vehicles.
And we've had properties like that had so much trash in the yard, it was blowing onto the neighbor's property.
Go drive through Bogus.
yeah, there is no question, we've got several up there. And we've got one of the properties that I know of for sure, the individual is. Let's just say that the individual is unreliable. And I'm not the one you're thinking of, I'm thinking of a different one that probably just,
Mhm.
well, just recently got out of jail. I mean, there's no financial wherewithal on that individual to be able to clean up the property. I'm not sure. It's a catch-22. We're like a dog chasing our tail. There is no question about that.
If I wasn't on Zoom, I'd say a lot more.
So it's a win-lose.
Yeah.
You're gonna win on one end and you're gonna lose on another end. It is what it is, whatever you decide to do. I just don't think financially we can continue to run it the way that we have run it in an effort to, and we haven't been successful. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to the board or any efforts that have been put forward by anybody to clean it up. But the reality of it is that you go back out, and I say, just go out west of town and see how much taxpayer dollars have we spent and what we've actually accomplished in that process. And I'd say it's a big fat zero, and it's nobody's fault here.
And the only thing we haven't talked about that we have in past discussions through the years is it has never been the intention of the board to take people's personal property.
No.
That is not what it's
Right,
about.
right.
And what has happened is many times, again, some properties have gotten cleaned up, and that's great. But some of them are honestly never gonna get cleaned up, or else they're in estates that take forever to settle, and you can't take those. So it's still gonna,
I would suggest though, if the board feels like they don't have the financial resources to enforce this, then maybe you should consider repealing it simply because without an enforcement mechanism and a, you know, without Russ or a Russ similar entity, we're telling the people of Jefferson County that this is an avenue that the county, this is an ordinance that the county will enforce, but not actually. And so if you repeal it, then it would basically state your remedy here is to take it to court.
But we don't have, we honestly do not have any financial recourse to follow up with it. It's just an idle threat.
Also, Russ would, you know, and maybe you did this before, you drive around and you see which properties.
we did
you
that
know,
the first
issue.
couple years I was here. It was Dick Lee and Dee doing a road tour, driving around, looking at properties, and that's when we said, this is, because somebody knew somebody, you know, it's like, oh, well, and it's like, this is, let's see what else is working, and we worked with Pat quite a bit on this.
And
And we committed to go through the process and then at some point to evaluate it, and we've gone through the process, and it's like all other things. There's been some very successes, and then there's the ones that,
And years ago, when we started this, at least when I first got on the board, it was by complaint only. We would go out and look, and then we would send letters, but you know, and we, as you indicated, we progressed to the point where we got to where we're physically going to clean your property up if you continue to ignore us. And we thought that was a good idea until.
They did it.
Yeah, you know. So. And I'll go back to my original statement. If we're not going to enforce it, then we might as well repeal it. Have
well,
it on
here,
the
we've
books.
just got discuss on it, we don't have a consider.
Okay.
So I would say, do you want it on another week? You want to wait till January and deal with it?
You're right about the public hearing part though.
Yeah.
Right, so if we put to discuss and consider repealing nuisance ordinance, then I think we'll hear from folks.
Okay. Do you want that on next week?
Well, I think
Or you want that
we've
in
got some folks in the
January?
pipeline here that, I mean, legally, you got some folks in the pipeline that I guess we need to,
I mean, repealing it, that it can be on your timeline, as Chauncey mentioned, you know, they've already been cited, the ordinance was in place at that time, so, yeah, you know. Be working through those.
Right.
I
So,
mean, you got one down there by, not too, right there across the road from Glasgow on the corner that has been an issue off and on over the
Have you
years.
driven by lately?
No, I have not.
It's much better.
Good.
see, there have been some successes.
I think it is a lot better now than it was before the nuisance ordinance was in place, generally speaking.
Well, before Russ was
Right.
doing it,
Right.
because I remember the first year I was chair, I did 23 letters as chair on nuisances. And so it's a significant time commitment. So, and that's fine. You just need to understand what was all involved. It's not like just, oh, we're gonna, you know,
So I mean, at least it's on the agenda for next week and to discuss and consider repealing, and we'll start the process and hear from folks.
well, and by the time you get the public hearing, it's gonna be the first of the year anyway.
Right.
Okay, discuss and consider starting solar farm ordinance.
Okay, I asked to put that on there. I was in committee reports. I was at our Russ board meeting last week, I guess, whatever, second Wednesday. And Louisa County now has another solar farm going in 5,000 acres. And so I think we need to start the process. I don't know what it'll look like, but I think we need to start the process to have some jurisdiction over. And I would, in talking to Chris Ball, who is stepping down, but he's currently.
He's a
Louisa County
supervisor,
They have, for example, 67 CSR is the 67 or higher in their solar ordinance, means that it can't be used for any other purpose other than ag. The issue they've got is if it's landlocked by land around it that doesn't meet that, they're arm wrestling over whether or not they can grant a variance. If it's not landlocked, they say they can't grant a variance. So they really have got some problems
Well,
there too.
what I would recommend is, I know there's been a gentleman contact me repeatedly, Pat, and he
And
talked to.
I've met with him and.
You
he
need to get,
actually-
and he's in the industry and he really wants to help, because the thing that people told me after the wind processed was ordinance that they wish they had gotten involved earlier than later, that rather than waiting to come to the public hearings. So I would recommend you get him to meet with you.
I've met with him. He actually has a proposed solar energy ordinance that he drafted. I have not really reviewed it, but I can also, similar to what we did with the wind ordinance, get some other ordinances from different counties. If you have any recommendations.
That would be
or comments.
smart.
And I don't know how I feel as a farmer on somebody trying to tell me what to do with my land, if I have a CSR of 67 or above. How about you? I think
I'm
that's,
not in favor of somebody telling me what I can do. with
I
my
know,
farm.
right?
That's my. that's
I
my
can tell
point.
you, I'm not in favor of
then
having a
why-
CSR.
Why is the board gonna ordinance this then? I understand the wind issue was more like, it was more
I
obtrusive,
know.
right? But
Well, I think for me, and I'm just speaking for me, the question is taking 5,000 acres out of production.
But that's
my
not this
5,000
board's
acres.
issue.
When nobody,
I agree with that.
it's what?
That's not this board's issue. This board has enough issues that are by law has to be dealt with. That is not one. this
I would
board-
think if an individual wants to sell you 5,000 acres to build a solar farm, that's not our business.
More power to them.
Yeah, it's not our
More
business.
solar.
But you still need some regulations about.
Exactly.
weapons And all of that stuff.
Well, I'm just saying.
You need
Yeah.
safety
We
and
can't
all
say
that
you
stuff.
can't. do it.
FAA, of course, but I mean, I imagine that they would have to abide by all of those regulations anyway.
But I think you're gonna get a lot of farmers in here if you're gonna try to tell them what to do with their land. Just saying.
Yeah.
But that's my whole point, is wanting to protect that ag land. I'm not necessarily saying what, but by the same token, we have a subdivision ordinance that has a CSR rating in it.
And you didn't pay any attention to it with Cypress Village.
I know it. I didn't, but
It was
you're
there,
right,
didn't.
yeah.
Good.
And that's my whole point. And you go back to, how do I want to say this? I'm just this is why I want to have the discussion, because if you have this, for example, and not one person owns this 100 parcels, there's 100 parcels involved in this process that are owned by multiple people. And some of that land that we're talking about that exceeds the 67, they're upwards of 130 or 140 CSR. And
No.
I'm just telling you what they told me.
No, hundreds about the top.
Okay, but
If
this
you
is,
get 90, you got perfect ground, 90 to 95.
I'm just telling you what they told me.
67.
And so they're having this
No.
big discussion on how to
Language.
proceed. Because the way that they're ordered, of course, they've got zoning too, which makes a
Yeah.
Yeah,
difference.
see, that's
Yeah.
different.
If
And
they're
I
not
understand
using
that.
any eminent domain, but if they're trying to force some eminent domain and take some, that's where I would flare up real
Mhm.
fast.
Well, but if you don't have anything in place to stop it, and it does not fall under the jurisdiction of the Iowa Utilities Board,
No, there needs to be a ordinance on it, but
and
think
again,
very
just
carefully
like the
about what
wind
goes
farm,
into it.
this, what they generate doesn't stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but I think
that's-
there's gonna be less opposition to solar just because it's not up in the air and it's.
Yeah, less
doesn't have.
violation.
And the
of
other
the
thing that
landscape.
you can do with it is you can use it for grazing land, so even though. Cause there can be sheep or whatever under there.
Mhm.
So, yeah. All right,
So you don't wanna move forward then?
on solar, I think you need to, but it's not gonna happen. You know how long Winton took, I mean,
No, well, no. I
what do you
know,
wanna
but-
do?
You wanna tell me to start, working on.
Could you draft
Yeah.
something and
Mhm.
maybe, in my opinion, I'm just saying
I
leave
mean,
out
I
the
don't know what it, I don't know
CSR.
what it'd look like, but I just,
Has any other counties done anything?
I
on
can
it?
research and see, make sure that there are counties maybe that don't have zoning that have
Yeah, that's the
addressed it,
key.
that would be helpful. I would imagine it would still be similar to the wind where you have a permitting process and it
Mhm.
goes before the board and.
When you say draft something, draft what exactly?
An
I mean,
ordinance.
right, but I mean, saying, what is the board attempting to control?
this is what, I mean, like I say, looking at other ordinances or whatever, I mean, I really truly don't know. I just know that they've got one hell of a dilemma over there
Would it,
right now, right in the middle of their zoning and everything else, because it's become a huge hiccup.
well, if we don't have zoning, then would it be an issue?
Well, and it won't be, you got somebody come in here and wants to take up 5,000 acres, and let's say everybody wants to sell. We don't have a clue until we do some research and understand what the impact of that
Well,
would be.
the impact that you need to put in the ordinance is gonna be disposal of those solar panels. Because I know a civil engineer who is very much against them just because of the disposal of them. And every time I've tried to research that, they have said, oh, by the time we need to dispose, there'll be some process in place. But is there? I mean, I don't know.
Mine are guaranteed for 25 years, that's not that long.
I know. So where are these gonna go when they wear out? Because apparently they have a lot of caustic chemicals on them.
What we did with the solar, I mean, with the wind ordinance, if you remember, is we had a work session on it. I don't know if that's something that you'd like to do, or if I should just,
I think
try
you
to
need,
figure out if there are a couple of different ordinances that I could present to you, because that's where we were. That's where we
yeah,
started
I would do
the process.
that. And again, I mean, you're gonna have a new member after January, so I do
And
that.
in all honesty,
then,
or
but I think you
in
need to
all
move forward.
fairness, when you go back to your wind ordinance, you're sitting here and you're saying, I don't want somebody telling me what to do with my land.
Mhm.
I just told you what you were going to do with your land and what the wind company was going to do. And if you were gonna have one, these were the requirements that you had to meet to have it. So I'm just telling you that, yeah, you can have turbine, but
Right, same thing, you can have solar panels, but it's gotta be a proper disposal process.
well, there were a lot more than
Yeah.
disposal. I mean, in this particular instance, corn suitability rating, all of those things.
Mhm.
So you're saying no, that shouldn't come into play.
I don't think it should. Why?
Elizabeth,
Yes.
I've heard rumblings about a solar farm in this county.
I have
Have
to,
you?
I've heard about solar panels going in kind of north of the trail and the driving range.
There's
Over
already much
here?
there, right?
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
already
yeah.
some there.
well, isn't the
Maybe
city doing
more.
a solar farm? Like
Yeah.
40 acres out by the airport?
I
Yeah.
thought it was there between that area and the airport.
Okay,
Well, there's already one out north of town there.
Yeah, there's one across from Reese.
Where
Mhm.
Foster
Right,
Street.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
mhm,
behind
off the
there.
trail. that you can
Now
see
that's
on
for the
trail.
college.
It's not huge, it's, like 5 acres or something.
No,
Yeah.
about 35
Is
acres.
it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
pretty good size.
I don't-
And really, it doesn't hurt anybody.
No.
And
I'm
it was
not
poured
saying-
ground too,
But,
so,
35 acres is a far cry from
yeah.
5,000 acres. And when you're talking, I mean, if you're talking about
5,000
flat
acres
ground and so on and
versus-
so forth. You start getting up there in those same areas you got up there with the wind turbines, or you get out north out here. And I'm not in favor of telling landowners what they can and can't do with their land, but by the same token. We have to be realistic, because we just told them what they could and couldn't do with their land or how they could do it. So we told them how they could do it. We're not telling you you can't have wind turbines, we're telling you how you have to do it. So if we're not saying you can't have a solar farm, we're telling you how you have to do it.
I think it'd be helpful to have a work session on it after the first of the year. You do what Patrick gave you and then maybe get another one.
Yeah.
that's from, if you can find one from a non-zoned county,
Will do.
let's see what's in it.
Might
And
be
then-
doing enough that nobody's got anything yet, too.
There's some
Is there
counties, but
some?
I think they're more metropolitan related counties probably that have them. Nobody-
Johnson.
Yeah, I think the story might have one, but I'm
I will
not
say
sure.
too, I would just be curious to know for drafting purposes where the technology is headed, you know, because that's something we had to consider with the wind ordinance. If the turbines are getting taller and taller and taller, you know, then that's something to consider. And if that's the case with the, I mean, I can't imagine that would be, but it would be good to know.
No, good discussion. Anything else on this? Or did we cover it enough for now?
Well, and yeah, that's the things you'll find out, I guess, but I would assume that they'd have to pour concrete and everything else to,
Posts.
right?
The footing.
All right, make committee reports.
We've had to cancel the Semco meeting several times in the past 3 months because of the wind. Because they closed the
Huh.
trash distribution down. That's just an FYI. I had a CETA meeting the other night, and the most interesting thing was the fact I don't want to say that, when they talk about the LIHEAP program, and I don't know if you know, I should know what that means. If you need energy assistance in the fall that would go through April, you would make application for that program.
Johnson, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you,
No.
but have you had any response back from anybody regarding Jackson Point after our meeting?
Well, okay, so I guess something that's good to talk about. I reached out to, I guess, take a step back there.
It's committee report.
Yeah, so
Because my.
Actually, so, met with the, Jackson Point group, and Lee to essentially discuss the fact that there were no requests for proposals for, taking over the operation and or ownership of that building. We submitted an RFP asking essentially for service agencies, nonprofits, people in the business of helping people, to propose, either a business or non-profitable operation for takeover of the Jackson Point operation. The ideal being not needing to evict the people that are residing there now, and maintaining it in some form as a residence for people with special needs and or low income. Our principal issue with that is it does come with a ballpark $800,000 forgivable loan from the Iowa Finance Authority. The terms of that forgiveness are not set in stone. They can't give us a predetermination of whether or not it's going to be forgiven. So how do you value a forgivable loan? Well, it's not $800,000. It's not zero. It's somewhere in between, and it's at the discretion of the Iowa Finance Authority upon maturation of that loan, which is 2027. Because we received no requests for proposal, our situation is a difficult one, and I don't know that I want to speak for the current operator, but he has indicated his intent to terminate operations of that facility very soon. That leaves us with a predicament. It's been my understanding that the county has absolutely no interest in becoming a landlord. So I did reach out to a commercial real estate auction or a real estate company. They would be willing to do it. My concern is I reviewed the law for distribution of public property. And it's pretty clear, if we own it, we need to auction it. That's the process for getting rid of county-owned property.
Except we don't own it.
We don't own it, but we have an interest in it, right? It really puts us in a bind because honestly, if anybody bid on it, they would be bidding on that plus the takeover of the assumption of the loan. So that's the situation we're in right now. I know. At this point, I don't necessarily feel legally comfortable with contracting with a real estate company to sell property because of the requirement in Iowa law to auction it off to a bidder. It's a great piece of property. It is limited in its utility because of the forgivable loan. That doesn't mean it's worthless. It is certainly, it's worth the ground it's on for sure. So that's where we are with that process. I'm not sure where to go next with the
Or is it Cool?
Mr. Cool, yeah, Gareth Cool of Cool and Associates is our legal
Do you have
counsel.
an answer to that question regarding, because when you look it up, it's the Progressive Housing Court, but which the county is not part of.
Mhm.
So
Now,
then wouldn't they be in charge of disposing of it or
who's the
whatever?
Progressive Housing Court?
Well, that was the meeting last week.
Yeah. Exactly, but the county is not titled to that property.
Right.
Correct.
In fact, it used to be called the Jackson Point Limited Partnership,
Mhm.
which if you go to the assessor's website, which is what it says. However, the limited partnership dissolved, for all intents and purposes. Because
So I'm gonna ask a silly question. So why is the county involved when we're not involved? I know, and I know we're involved, believe me, I know the history. However, we're not the owner,
right,
we're not the owner, we're not the owner.
If that's the position of the board, you can wash your hands of this entire
I don't
issue.
know, I'm just asking.
yeah, my only concern is, and I think the board's concern as well, is we don't want those folks to lose their
Right.
homes.
Exactly.
I hesitate to use this phrase because it's got a negative connotation. And it's not, I'm not saying that's what it is, but the Jefferson County Progressive Housing Corporation is essentially a shell corporation. It's not real, and I'm using that in the most positive possible light. It is an entity that was created for the purpose of essentially holding this property. But it has no assets, it has no funds.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump to the bottom line here. So what it tells me is either the county is not involved or the county has to be prepared to purchase that and take on operating that facility. I mean, that's kind of looks to me like,
We have the financials for the present operation, and it's clear to us why the current operator is removing themselves. It is not generating a profit.
correct, which doesn't surprise me given, and I'm not suggesting, but it just seems like we keep, as I call it, circling. We understand the issues, but we're not the owners, so it's like if we want to do the take care of people thing, that's a separate issue. It's going to cost a bunch of money, but that's what needs to happen, or we find somebody to buy it.
Not everyone there needs to be taken care of. There are a substantial number of units that are on Section 8.
Are there places where these folks can go other than there?
I think most of them, I'm not 100% sure, but I think most of them are Optimate clients, but don't quote me on that, I don't know.
So maybe we should meet with Optum.
We did,
Oh,
and we sent an RFP to them.
yeah, and they
As
didn't.
well as First Resources, I contacted Ryan Wood, she sent the RFP out to her contacts. Chauncey did as well to his contacts. And I do know that the rent, the first of the year is going up to 500 for a 1-bedroom and 620 for the 2-bedroom. I got that from Keyway Management. And that generates a little more than 100,000 a year.
You know,
And I don't know,
the county got out of the county home business unless you want to get back into it. It's as simple and as complicated as that.
well, and you're exactly right, and that was the process, and Chauncey's exactly right. This was put together to secure, in this case, PNC Bank, and for the tax credits, and the county had to be, the county donated land that actually was
Railroad.
provided by Mr. Cooster to the county and turned around and donated the land so that the county had skin in the game, so to speak, for Iowa Finance Authority to come on
Right.
board. But where we're at right now is what you said is accurate. The county does not have a dog in the hunt in terms of ownership of property. And Chauncey's right by the same token by saying that, well, the county board of supervisors appoints to Progressive Housing Corp. The shell that you're referencing.
What happens if that shell's dissolved? Is it serving a
For
purpose?
all intents and purposes, it has been dissolved. There's just one leg of the stool left, and the stool's laying on its side.
No, I know. It's just like, my heart goes out to all those folks that live there, but
Susie, you're thinking. What are you thinking?
Use your opioid money to buy it.
Well, we don't need to buy it.
Oh, to run it.
that's not gonna go very far.
No, I'm just saying, you wanna know what I was thinking?
Yeah,
You
no,
wanna
I'm
help those
just,
people?
yeah, but we don't need to buy it.
You
Okay.
would need to hire somebody, at least one person, maybe several people to manage it. We don't have anybody in this
Right.
county operation that is a real estate housing
And
person.
right now, Progressive Housing Corp has no accounts. They receive no money. They don't exist for all intents. and
Like I said,
purposes.
you just asked me.
I know.
told
and
you.
I
that's
know,
but no,
and the
I
$200,000
value what
would
you're
be
saying.
gone
You know,
in
because
a year.
there've been houses, especially in East Burlington.
Yeah.
The neighbors threw a fit when
Mhm.
they wanted to do
Yes,
something
you're
like
100%
that.
correct.
Mhm.
And that's too bad.
Yeah.
There are folks living in little storage facilities.
And I do think that either Optimate or First Resources probably would have more than been willing to step up, except for the $800,000.
If we
Okay,
don't
tell us
operate
more
it-
about that.
We don't operate, if that property is not operated under very rigorous standards for low income and special needs housing, then the $800,000 provided by Iowa Finance Authority is not forgivable. They determine whether or not it's forgivable at the maturation date in 2027.
And no payments have been made on that loan in 15 years.
It's expected that it's going to be forgiven, but it can't be guaranteed.
I
Now, I've been
understand.
working with Iowa Finance Authority on this. It's a government entity. Their job is to make processes like this work, and that, but for them, we wouldn't have low income housing and special needs housing developments in the state as easily.
Yeah.
So
Well, we
there's
kind of do. We've got those storage facilities.
the point being, they're not like a bank that's trying to make a profit here. They're trying to ensure that the property is used for the intended purpose. So
Right.
that's their lever is that 800.
And I appreciate your thought with the opioid money. However, I don't think it's gonna fit the criteria, because that's very strict criteria that
Yeah.
Elizabeth has
Don't know till you ask.
every time. No, it doesn't. You look on there, these people, unless, I don't know, I'm guessing there could be 2 or 3 maybe that have but they're not there for opioid issues.
Chauncey and I reached back out to First Resources,
Yeah.
see if we could address some of their concerns,
Mm-hmm.
because this is what they do. They own property.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So what'd they say?
Well, they wanted a finance agreement. Was that what they were asking?
We've given them all the documents with,
Yeah.
So could we make an agreement with them and use the ARPA money and say, this is a one-time gift if you'll take it over? Just saying.
that was kind of, we didn't have any of that in our RFP. Our request for proposal was essentially take over the property, make us a proposal and we'll.
But could we do, make it clear it's a one-time deal?
You're proposing that we essentially pay somebody to take this off our hands?
Oh, and forgive me, also went to our Area 15
Okay.
as well.
Well, either that or just ask them what it would take and negotiate that out with them, because I clearly feel for the people who live there. However, long-term, I don't think this county can afford to take care of them. We can't afford a nuisance person.
Frankly, the place would be an excellent alcohol and opioid rehab center. It's got 2 buildings.
Right, but
one-
who's gonna run it and where's the money?
Right. That would be something that, well, where's the money? I mean, these places open up all over the place. We don't have one here.
Right.
They're operated because insurance, I think, is mandated to pay for rehabilitation. It's 2 buildings, one for males, one for females. That was not what our RFP was, right?
Okay.
And that is not,
Yeah.
that is not, I don't believe, considered under the Iowa Finance Authority's loan, so
So
that
they
would
have
not, it would not be a
And
forgivable.
not knowing what those lease agreements say.
Do you think that could be negotiated with Iowa Finance if they understood the situation though?
I'm sure they deal with this all the time. They are good to work with.
Because they want this to succeed.
Yeah, yeah, they do. But this is not the intended use, right? So that's the issue.
But you're still gonna have, and I know a few of the residents that live there because I do. So not all of them are gonna have an alcohol treatment or an opioid issue.
Sure.
So it's still gonna depend on some other funding. Otherwise, where do these go? I mean, it depends what the goal is. And
We're looking at this like and it is an acute issue. But we have a building. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right? We have an encumbered building. That what our timeliness issue is that the operator is going to stop being the operator sometime in the very near future.
how near future,
Maybe January, February,
Ooh.
very near.
very near.
Yeah. And
Um,
the operator's been really pretty decent to work with,
Good.
actually.
How about? I'm just thinking if you can reach out to. You did the RFP with,
Well, we just put it out there.
and just
you know.
informally say, hey, or however you need to do that.
Basically, what do you need to do what do we need to do to put you in this building?
What would
today?
it take for you to take this over and see what you get back?
You say to operate, where are you gonna move your clients?
Yeah, have that discussion.
Yeah.
I don't care if you want to bring them to a meeting.
Yeah.
Or have your committee to take care of it, but I just,
So if the operator walks away from it, is he responsible for that 800,000 loan?
No, the
who is,
Jefferson County Progressive Housing Corporation is.
do they have
You
money?
said it was a shell corporation.
It is.
Well, they have an asset. They have that building.
It's
essentially that-
From the building.
The loan is guaranteed by the building.
Okay.
But in reading the contract too, that it states that the members of the Progressive Housing Corp are not responsible.
Yeah, I'd just reach out to them and see what it would take, and if you want to put anything
Because
on
if
the
you
agenda or
remember,
have your
here
group handle it
Not
either
too terribly
way.
long ago, the county agreed to pay $8,000 for the what was
Audit.
that? Audit.
Part of the IFA loan is that there's very strict auditing and accounting requirements for all the money that's generated.
And we've never done that before, at least at the time that I've been here, so I'm assuming that Keyway Management was covering the cost of that over the years.
And just so everybody knows, that encumbrance is gonna come up again here in January.
How
And they're
many
also-
residents,
18 units, I think 2 are uninhabited at this point.
I understand, yeah, according to the paperwork that was sent. And then, of course, there's property taxes being paid. Because the county doesn't own it, it's a commercial or residential operation. And property taxes, I can't remember what I told you they were, but $4,000 a year or something like that.
but that would go away if somebody like nonprofit got it.
If they were exempt under the law, right?
And the county could always exempt them
Right.
anyway, whoever it is.
But my point is.
They could be part of
that
the
taxes have been
negotiation.
paid, have been being paid by the management company. Which points back to the fact that it's not county owned.
Yeah, I guess. For the sake of those residents, I don't know if we'd put all that ARPA money, but some of it maybe just to incentivize everybody to take care of it. Hi, we're still in session. So,
You're right. This is not black and white, black letter law. This is not the county's problem,
right,
but it kind of.
it's a human
It's a
problem,
human.
but I don't think the county has the funds to long-term be funding that problem.
Do you want to be in the landlord business?
No,
And see, an Optimay isn't in the landlord business. They generally, what they do is they work with a landlord.
I mean, that
First
decision was
Resource, on the
made
other hand,
when
is
the
in
county home
business.
closed. So,
How did that work? Were we managing that? Was there a county employee that worked at the county home? I know we called it the county home, but I don't think we actually, it wasn't a department, was it?
Years ago, it was, long before I ever came here, it was the Jefferson County. Yeah, it was a county home and it was run by the county, and then it was eventually sold to, I don't know if it was called Rest Care at that time or not.
It was.
And then in conjunction with Rest Care, this idea came up because the county home was starting to have issues, I guess. And so that came to pass, and so some of the residents, not all, but some of the residents moved up here when the new facility was built. And but I think there was what do you want to call it, an overseer, a manager, or whatever of the county home way back when, and maybe it fell under the jurisdiction of mental health. I don't know.
I'll call Ryan this week and see if she's got any ideas, but I doubt it. Everybody.
And we went to some commercial entities as well.
We went to FIDA or Fairfield.
And doesn't
They-
fit their thing probably.
They were actually instrumental in putting this together to begin with. This was a FIDA project originally when it was built. But at this time, they were not.
They're interested in housing, but not this kind of housing.
I don't know the exact reasons, but they're not on board.
Yeah, you're right. They were original member of the limited partnership.
They got out as soon as it was done being built.
Right. And that may have been part of the same reason the county was initially involved in it.
Why don't you see what Reds Care or,
Optimum.
yeah, either Optimate or the other one.
Yeah.
First resources, right?
First resources.
First Resources, and First Resources, I'd try them first since they're nonprofit.
And I am gonna talk to the people at Iowa Finance Authority and essentially
Yeah,
tell them
ask
where
them.
we are.
Well, and ask them if they have any ideas. Surely we're not the only place going through this.
Yeah. They don't want the building. Obviously, they have a loan, they have a mortgage on it. They don't, by any stretch of the imagination, they want to be in the landlord business less than we do, so.
Well, they might know of landlords that might be interested.
Yeah.
All right. Susie, you were
I can't even remember what I was talking about.
reporting on a
I
committee.
apologize, but.
You
I
had
didn't
no
want to delete
Simcoe.
that.
No, it's good discussion.
So, basically, I was talking about the LIHEAP program.
Yes.
The general rule is if you've used LIHEAP before, gotten no services, you apply by October 1st. No, folks, you need to apply by November 1st. There's been something happen at the state where things are falling through the cracks. And the October 1st people don't know yet if they're getting their LIHEAP assistance from now till April. And the state, in its wisdom, has told them they could start working on the November 1st applicants instead of the October 1st applicants. And is it convoluted? Yes, it is.
Sound like it.
And so and you know the deal here, the basic bottom line is, if you guys are getting LIHEAP, you aren't getting your bills paid until that's signed.
Right.
So we're gonna have a lot of folks coming in to see Ray. We're gonna have a lot of folks get behind on their bills. People will get shut off just because there's a hiccup in the system. Just want you to know.
Well, doesn't the law still exist that the utility company can't shut them off from such and such a time to such and such a time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't.
But you're right, they get behind and then.
They
LIHEAP
get
will
behind,
cover it
yeah, right.
Because they're so far behind, you
Right.
get some money. but
Yeah,
not
we
all of
had
it.
we had a program one year where people, honest to God, were $3,000 behind.
Yeah.
And that was by February.
All right. Any other committee reports? I don't have any.
Well, we talked about Russ. We are moving forward now. We officially have the it's called Drive for the VA fundraiser in place. And so we've started the process. We're going to get on TV and other locations. 501c3 that's been set up and to try and help offset a couple $100,000 it costs to run the VA program.
Okay.
We also are reaching out to Wapello County Board of Supervisors specifically. They appropriated in their last budget $150,000 to the VA, of which only about $50,000 was spent. And they offered no help towards our VA program, even though they're a member of transit. So we're saying, hey, come on, guys, if you've got that kind of funding, help us out here a little bit. So we'll see if anything comes of that. And I touched on it briefly, but Area 15 Regional Planning, Chris Kukla, our transportation guru, is going to the DOT in our district office out here. We're gonna miss him on one level, but on another level, he's been great. I wanted to point out that we received the Community Development Block Grant eligibility list, and so Packwood, Batavia, Fairfield are all well within the eligibility requirements as far as low to moderate income. Packwood's at 69%, Batavia's at 56%, Fairfield's at a little more than 54% of their population. So what that simply means is that they don't have to jump through all the hoops and climb over all the hurdles to qualify for the CDBG. They're automatically in the.
What about Pleasant Plain, Libertyville, Lockridge?
Lockridge used to be like the lowest of it. Are they in there?
Libertyville is only 33, so they're below the, so what that simply means is that they can still qualify for a CDBG, but they have to jump through all the hoops.
Right, now we went through that when we did that.
Right, Lockridge the same way, Pleasant Plain, only 15%.
Yeah.
However, they did qualify for the sewer, so my guess is that once they, and I honestly, we talked about this, I don't know how in the world they came up with some of these numbers, because in the previous census, Packwood, for example, was at 31.6%, and they jumped to 69.2.
I didn't,
It's called new
When was the
math.
previous census? How far back?
Well, 2020, the last count of low to moderate income was 2011 to 2015, and then 2016 to 2020.
Okay.
So they're roughly a 5-year window there.
probably people who participated in.
Can I ask you a question?
You sure can.
You said that 1015 had been audited. Are there audit, and they had audit findings because you showed me that.
Right.
What are they doing about that to rectify?
We sent the responses in. And basically all it was the state was saying, what are your responses to these? And so, for example, one of the questions that came up from the entities that filed the complaint was, how in the hell did you build all these buildings? Okay, so we said, well, we built all those buildings because the Iowa Department of Transportation gave us a PTIG grant. Oh, okay, check.
Yeah.
So basically what it was that there were entities out there that thought somehow or another we were pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. And so the state did and even though they were here and went through the audit and were told that, for example, on the PTIG grants, yeah, we got all that money. Now, one of the complaints was, well, that building that you bought initially was only on the assessor's rolls for $128,000 with assessed value, and you paid $500,000 for it. They're 150% correct on that. But the fact that it was valued by the assessor at $128,000, go talk to Mr. Parker about how he railed against the fact because it cost the county money and it was way undervalued, as were multiple properties in Wapello County. You know, we had no jurisdiction or control over how those properties were valued.
Right.
That's interesting.
It is, yeah.
Okay, anything else for today? There's no claims, so there's nothing else. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Are we gonna have a public hearing? Just kidding.
No, we already got rid of that. I'm gonna second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye. Bye.